Good morning to all the delegates, speakers, and guests. I extend a warm welcome to all the participants at this FDP on digital transformation in AEC industry. I find immense pleasure in introducing our honorable inaugural event chief guest, Professor P.B. Sunil Kumar, Professor and Director of IITPalakkad. Welcome you, sir. Professor Sunil Kumar is a professor and director of IITPalakkad and who has been leading the institute since its inception. Professor Sunil is a well-renowned physicist known for his research on soft matter and biological physics. He is a recipient of many awards and recognitions, and which includes Fellow of Indian National Sciences and recipient of Professor M.V. Pillai Award for Distinguished Academician of India. He is also a professor in the Department of Physics at IIT Madras. When this FDP event got approved, the first person who came into my mind is Professor Sunil. I didn't have any second thought to approach him for inaugurating this particular event. This is due to his close association with AEC industry. His association with AEC industry is more than our institute's age. I, being a privileged person to work with him closely as a colleague in our permanent campus development project, I have been amazed by his knowledge about built environment and his passion in introducing digital tools in all our campus development projects in many occasions. This is one of the main reasons why I didn't have any hesitation to request him for inaugurating this event. I'm very much thankful to you, sir. Amid your busy schedule for taking time out to inaugurate this FTP. Once again, I welcome you, sir, to this event, and I request you to kindly inaugurate this 5 days FDP on digital transformation in AEC sector. Thank you, sir. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Senthil. I hope I'm audible to all of you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good morning to all the participants of this AICT sponsored ATAL workshop on digital transformation in architectural engineering and construction. Okay. So it is a great pleasure to me, for me to welcome all of you, and I'm also very happy to see that this event is organized at IITPalakkad, which is fully into using such technologies for our own construction management and architectural planning. So I guess this is a very appropriate event for us to hold at this point. I wish that all of you could come to Palakkad and participate in this event. I wish that was so. That would have been I wish such a situation was there for us today. Unfortunately, we have to do this online. But I hope Dr. Senthil would be able to show you some parts of how this has been used. Some of these technologies have been used in our planning and management of construction. There is no need for me to elaborate on the importance of such technologies, the importance of using such technologies in today's construction management and planning, both architectural and also in construction planning. It is obvious to all of us. Unfortunately, what we see is that there is very little expertise available in the country in the use of such technologies, and this includes our premier construction agencies, both private and public. So very few people really have the knowledge and the expertise to experience to put this into practice. And even more, what we see is that there is a fear or a reluctance to get into this and use it. See, that is even more worrying because it's natural that when new technologies come, not everybody who is already in the field have exposure and experience in using that. But we should be open to that, right? We should be open to such technologies, and we should put our heart and head into learning that and using it. And this fear mostly comes from our lack of knowledge of how this can be used, and how easy or how difficult it is to use such technologies. In that context, such workshops and exposing people, I'm sure this kind of workshops will not make you an expert in an area, but it will expose you to what is available and what can be done and what people are using, and so that you could pick up the rest of it on your own or with other further training which you can take from professional agencies too. So this is so in that context is a very appropriate, very timely workshop. And our country is going, you know is a rapidly expanding construction industry here in this country, and we are onto a large infrastructure creation. And many of you who are participating in this workshop today will be tomorrow on the field, and and should be able to use, and should be in a situation to be able to use and advise other people to use, train other people to use such technologies. Personally, I have seen the use of it, and in our construction, I'm not a civil engineer, as Senthil Kumar kindly introduced me. I'm not a civil engineer, and till Senthil Kumar came to this institute, I did not have first-hand exposure to some of these things like BIM, which is being used here today. Uh, but I have seen the change because we had started construction even before that, and I've been always been troubled by, not having proper tool to analyze the status and the progress and all the impediments which is stating on our way in achieving the targets. And with the present tool, I think we have been able to make much progress on that. And I think at least we have a much better idea where we are going. I think. So so all of you should pay. I hope all of you would pay enough attention to this and learn a lot, and from Senthil Kumar and his team here, who's, I'm sure there is also people from professional agencies here, isn't it, Senthil, give to give lectures in this program.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you will definitely learn a lot, and should be in a position to apply this as well. And also some case studies, I'm sure Senthil and team would present, including our own construction related things, and where this as such tools as BIM and Primavera or whatever we are using has been of great help. Okay. And so these case studies will also, I'm sure, convince you why we should go for all of this, including resource planning, architectural thing, and and resolving conflicts in between the structure, services, and all of that thing, right? So this is so many things in this whole thing, in this complex process of building a campus. I think you will enjoy it, and because we have many case studies to present, it will not be a dry run, I'm sure. And with these words, I welcome all of you once again, and welcome all the participants. And I hope that we will have follow-up such meetings in slightly better situation than we have today in the country, and where you'll be able to come and see our campus also. So welcome all of you, and wishing you all a uh, very useful and enjoyable workshop ahead. Thank you, Senthil. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. And I'm sure that all the participants would have also felt that you don't require any introduction to demonstrate your skills and other things in AAC or built environment sector. I mean, you touched upon all the key challenges and points which are there exist in the industry so far. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor. And without much delay, I would like to give some more information to the participants before we get into the keynote speech by our renowned Professor Koshi Varghese. He's also joined, if I'm not wrong. Welcoming you, sir. Let me give an introduction to Professor Koshi Varghese, and then also kind of some instructions to the participants for the smooth conduct of this particular event, online event. Yeah, once again, I feel honored to introduce Professor Koshi Varghese, one of the well-renowned professor in the construction industry. Yeah, Indian construction industry as well as around the world. And Professor Koshi Varghese is a professor in the Department of Civil Engineering and Dean of Administration at IIT Madras. Sir, you hardly need any introduction. You have made all of us proud of your distinguished work in numerous capacities. You are one of the most celebrated construction management researchers in India and abroad. Professor Koshi has obtained his master's and doctoral degree from University of Texas at Austin and has been a visiting eminent scholar at Arizona State University. And he has obtained his bachelor degree from Anna University. He has received numerous academic honors. Few in the list are like Distinguished Scholar Awards, numerous Best Paper Awards, editor of reputed journals, core membership in various curricula, presidentship in international organization, and certificates of appreciation. He has been involved in developing a unique postgraduate program in partnership with the largest construction company in India, Larsen & Toubro. This program has been operational for 16 years successfully and is widely recognized as a model for institute industry interaction. In addition to this, he has performed several key administrative responsibilities at IIT Madras. He has mentored 3 startup initiatives in the institute's research park, and his research interests are primarily in the area of modeling and automating engineering processes using appropriate computational methods and tools. So it is quite natural for me to invite him for giving a keynote speech for this particular event. He has been the principal investigator of several sponsored research projects. Many of these projects have been awarded based on submitting competitive proposals evaluated by sponsoring organizations. And based on the capabilities of their research group at IIT Madras, Autodesk funded the establishment of the first BIM, Building Information Modeling Laboratory in IIT Madras, in India, at IIT Madras. I welcome you, sir, and we are very much keen to listen to your keynote speech on the digital transformation of AEC industry around the world.
Thank you, Senthil. Good morning, Sunil. Good to see you, and good morning to all the participants. Yeah, I am going to share my screen. Okay, I think this should be good, right?
Yes.
Okay, again, thanks to IITPalakkad, thanks to the organizers of this event for inviting me to give this talk. It's an honor to be here to be able to address all the participants here. And the talk, what I'm going to kind of go on is on generally in the digital construction space. And I understand this is what the whole topic of the course is about. And I will go directly to the outline. I will talk a little bit about why do digital, why automate? I think this is a question that gets asked frequently in the Indian context. Almost all the time when we give a talk on automation or digitization or digital construction, there is questions which I think I need to address, and that's first part I will do that, especially with reference to automation in emerging nations. That is a little bit on the second. We'll show a little bit on technology trends in construction, and then I think a larger part of the talk will be some of the work we are doing at IIT Madras. And I particularly would like to highlight this because I believe there are many teachers in the audience, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is also to show that we can actually give projects in the space to our students, and we are able to really, move the frontier, show proof of concept of going away from what people might call traditional civil engineering projects. Okay, how do you bring digital technology into the construction or into the things we do today? First, let me address the question, why automate? Okay, so a lot of times we look at different aspects of it, and then we say that, so when we look back, so here is a time cover from 1980 when they say, okay, there's going to be a robot revolution. And did it actually happen? Not really. Okay, in some spaces, yes, but not much. Again, 2014, everyone said, okay, and everything is going to be automated. Things are coming up. And again, when we talk about artificial intelligence or we talk about robotics, automation, it's always been, the scales have been very, very low. And when we talk about automation in construction, I've been involved in this since the late 80s, and it's always been exciting, but also, what do you say, disappointing. We expect a lot more things to happen, but it's been slow. And of late, if you look at the covers of some of the magazines like ENR is kind of a very key magazine for construction because it shows what the practice in construction is going to be. So ENR starts talking about automation. That means the so-called automation is starting to arrive on construction sites. People are seriously putting funding into it. People are putting money. And when money starts getting invested, then the technology starts developing. So this is where we are. Some of these the ENR you can see on the left is on automation on your job site. And these are webinars that are happening. So today, globally, automation is becoming very important. And the technologies are catching up with what a construction site can offer, the challenges a construction site offers. We always talk about construction being unstructured, you're working with the weather, unlike manufacturing. So we are there. And when we say automation, again, I don't mean just robotics. While in the last couple of slides, it looked like I was only talking about robotics, but I'm talking about a broader sense of automation as well as robotics. So I'm using the term automation to mean both physical automation as well as information automation. And we go on to the question, why automate? Now, this is one of the first examples of automation. Okay, this was, I'm not going to, normally if you all were in a classroom, I would have asked you to take guesses at what this was. But actually, we'll move ahead. This is basically a machine that helps you to make bottles, glass bottles. So you can see the automation of the machine was by Owen, okay, in the early 1900s. And this machine replaced this process of glass blowing, okay, which was a very hazardous process. Okay, not only was it hazardous, you can see the cost when you compare the automated versus the manual approach. You can see that the productivity was much better with the machine. Now, was it the productivity that actually caused the change of going from glass blowing from manual to machine? Actually, in addition to productivity, there was a very, very big impact on the use of child labor. So if you see you can see a small boy who is a part of this bottle making manual process. And these boys were required because they could actually move quickly between handling different parts of the process, and they were small enough that they were able to go between the workers. So child labor was a very, very prevalent part of this operation. And actually, they said that the automated machine did much more to eliminate child labor than it did through legislation. So although there were a lot of laws against it, I mean, I think we face similar situations still in parts of our country. It was actually the automation that actually addressed the child labor issue and eliminated it, because it brought in profits, it brought in productivity, it reduced the hazards. Now, so when we look at automation, it's not just one element. There are multiple elements which actually impact automation. When you can look at from time, you can look at cost, you can look at occupational health and safety, quality. Today we talk about sustainability, and we see corporate image and innovation. We see a company doing something in a more automated manner that we think they are more high tech. We think they have got their plans down better rather than doing it in a highly manual process. And then there is also social responsibility. Let us address. So this question is what gets asked in India. Is it socially responsible to automate? Are we taking away work from the workers? And if we look at automation in emerging economies specifically, okay, we are going to face a lot more issues. We get a lot of questions on this. And so let's take a step back and look at who are the emerging economies of how is our population distributed. So if you look at overall population distribution in the world, this is roughly where it is. China and India are more than 62% of the world's population. Remaining parts are very, very small. And we continue to grow, and we will continue to be the dominant part of the world's population. Now, we don't look at population only, we also look at something called a population pyramid. Okay, and this shows how the population is distributed based on age as well as gender. We look at just from the age factor now, and you will see that the more pyramid-like it is, that means this is the younger population, and as you grow, let me get a pointer here. So the younger population is here. Okay, and this would be natural, right? That you would have as it grows older, the population grows older, there are less people. And you can see this is the projection of the world's population over 2050. You can see that the pyramid is getting more like a cylinder. What that means is that the world is going to get older. There are going to be less young people to support. I mean, the ratio of old to young is going to be decreasing. Okay, the younger people are going to be less, and there are going to be more older people. The world is getting older. Now, if you take this and map it onto different countries, so this is China's population pyramid in 2020. This is what India looks like, the US, Japan, and this is what Nigeria looks like. Okay, so if you compare these pyramids, where do you think automation is going to be the most required? Anyone wants to guess? Just think about it. Okay, which of these countries is going to require more automation when we look at it from a population standpoint? Okay, I would say looking at it, it's Japan, because there are less young people and more old people, and you're going to start replacing manual with more automation. And Nigeria would probably require it the least, because there are people to do work if you want to do it. So this is an argument that comes often, that yes, we can see the Japanese are far ahead in robotics, automation, and especially the robotic side, because they need to. Okay, and might be India doesn't need to at this stage. Emerging countries don't need to. But this is something which we have to think about in a little different model as when we compare to just the developed nations or nations which have a very large old population and relatively small young population. So if we look at it from a basic classification point of view, we can look at the different population triangles. So we look at the general requirement for automation. If you look at the Nigerian kind of distribution, it's low. Requirement for job creation is high. Whereas when you look at what we are in India, probably automation is medium, job creation is still high. For the Japanese kind of model, the automation is high and job creation is low. Okay, so this is probably an acceptable way to look forward and say that, look, we are not going to require intense automation like the Japanese, etc. But still, where do we stand? If we look at infrastructure, we know that we need a tremendous amount of infrastructure. Okay, so whether it's, and our government or, public at large have been demanding this. If you look at the rate of metro construction that's going on in India, it's second only to China. If you look at anything, water supply systems, you look at, urban development, you look at airports, you look at, railway lines, high-speed rail, the volume of projects that are going on here in terms of numbers is enormous. Will we be able to sustain this kind of work? Okay, and we need to, because if you look at as a country that's emerging, our main problem is in developing infrastructure. So we definitely need to develop our infrastructure, and at the same time we need jobs. So the question is, can we do infrastructure development? If we go everything automated, does it mean our workers are out of jobs? Or if we go everything manual, what happens? Or everything less automated, less mechanized, which means we will not be able to deliver these projects on time. There are issues in delivering these projects. So if you, for example, okay, I will come to some of these examples later, but this is the model which we think we should follow. So if you look at, we have three levels of automation, or three levels you can look at. There's labor intensive, there's mechanized, and there's automated. So if you look at an emerging nation, we think all these are required. That is the proposition you're making. You cannot say that we're going to be, putting all our eggs in the automated basket. We cannot say that, automation is not required because we have so much labor and we're going to be only doing labor intensive or somewhat mechanized. Okay, we actually have to work on all three fronts. We need to be able to enable labor intensive where it's required. We need to be able to be comfortable and move to more mechanized where it's required. We need to be able to go to the most sophisticated levels of automation where it's required. Isn't this the typical Indian situation where we can have, the most expensive automobile standing next to the most inexpensive automobile in the world in the same traffic light? I think that's India. Okay, we have diverse needs as far as our construction requirements also go. Now, as we move in, so if we look at the nation's requirements, we have definitely a requirement for rural infrastructure, urban infrastructure, and critical national infrastructure. And we would probably look at each of these infrastructure requirements and say that we need to actually apply the right kind of appropriate automation, I would say, or appropriate techniques depending on the need. If we try to create national infrastructure with what do you call manual methods, or less automated, less mechanized, I think we are going to be delayed. I think the quality is going to get affected. I think we are going to be not doing justice to the money that's being spent. Similarly, do we need to use, if we use highly automated means for rural infrastructure, you'll find that the investment is not going to yield returns. So this is something which has to, our policymakers and have to kind of look in, or even our construction companies, our clients have to look at when we are kind of planning out our construction works. So we come to this issue of appropriate automation. That's what is required for an emerging nation. So when we are looking at, definitely we want to, just as in the child labor case, we cannot say that we want our hazardous tasks done by labor. We have to reduce the menial and hazardous task involvement. We definitely, this is prevalent in all of our construction. We don't need people lifting sacks. It is ergonomically not good, and there are impacts on it later. We need earlier completion of infrastructure, okay, that we know, and a lot of it can be helped only through the productivity of or production levels of an automated system. We need to improve predictability and quality. And ultimately, when we talk, okay, India has a lot of labor, do we find skilled labor? Do we find labor willing to work in construction? The answer is no. If you go to any construction site today, you can see, I think, behind Dr. Senthil's background is IITPalakkad construction site, I assume.
Yes.
And I don't know, do you have enough labor there, or is labor a problem?
No, this is a perennial problem at our site.
Yeah. So while we say there is labor, there is, India has a lot of population, etc., we are not able to get skilled labor or willing labor on a construction site. And this is not just in IITPalakkad, all over. We have got a lot of campus construction going on at IIT Madras. The biggest problem the contractor faces is not enough labor. And another observation, which I think all of you would have also probably made, I think 10 years back, if we had a campus construction going on for a tall building, we probably used a builder's hoist. Instead, today, we have like 5 tower cranes on campus. Every project above a certain height, the contractor is willing to use a tower crane because of productivity improvement, availability of the tower crane, many reasons. Okay, so things are naturally moving economically and socially into the direction of automation, or what do you call more automated means. I'd like to kind of illustrate the last point on appropriate automation with an example. So here you have 3 means by which a railway is laid. You can see here is a very manual intensive method. Okay, and all these are happening in India today. Okay, and this is the same, railway is the client. Okay, and this is one approach. Here is a semi-automated approach. Okay, the hazard is taken off. Here somebody could drop the rail, drop this, drop that. All these problems are there. The hazard is relatively taken out, and there's a lot more automation here. And this is a fully automated method by which I think the freight corridor is being done today. Okay, so now of the three, what we are not saying is not that all railway lines can go to the fully automated method, but at least the partially automated method is required because of many reasons. And I'm not going to again, analyze this, but most of you know that this should not be the practice we use on our sites. We should move from here to here. We can do it with not too much investment, but with much higher productivity. We just need a change in mindset, and that is beginning to happen. Okay, now I'm moving on from the introduction or kind of the base to where, where are we going with reference to automation? So I think this is a slide that was put out by the World Economic Forum a few years back. It talks about the future of construction. And I think many of the topics I noticed in your course deals with several of these areas, okay? If I take 1 and 2, they are fairly traditional. I'm not going to spend too much time discussing it. They're very, very important, okay, but fairly traditional. I mean, but we know a reason. I mean, they've been around for some time. Developments are high. I'm not going to talk too much about it. We will talk a little bit about 3D printing and additive manufacturing through an example later. You might have seen that we are doing quite a bit of work in IIT Madras on this. And then when we talk about autonomous construction, again, I'm not going to discuss too much about it in example, but definitely there is so much going on in autonomous areas, that it's something I hope the course is covering some parts of it. And I believe it is. I will talk a little bit about augmented reality and virtualization through an example. I'm not going to go into the basics of what it is or things like that, but I'm going to show the work that can be done in that area. Big data, predictive analytics, I don't have a case study for you, but there is a lot of work that's being done. And again, we can go into that in terms of question and answers. Wireless monitoring and connected equipment, lot of opportunities here. Cloud real-time collaboration, more definitely opportunities there too. 3D scanning, photogrammetry, I'll spend some time on that. And of course, everybody's talking about building information modeling in some form or the other today. But again, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I think it's a very well, covered. I won't use the word covered, talked about topic. But basically, this gives a little bit of a panorama on all the opportunities there are in construction and how do we actually make use of it. So for the remaining of the talk, I will spend a little bit of time on this. And let me just keep track of time also, because this can go on. What I have another 30 minutes and then? Okay, yes. Just tell me when to speed up when your other parts come up, okay? Yeah. So before we get into the detail, I would like to talk about this thing called technology adoption curve. So we would like to look at all of these technologies and then look at it with a curve like this, which is not just for construction technologies, it's used for all kinds of technologies. And we say that a new technology starts here and sometimes they fall into the chasm and they never make it over. But you have some early adopters in certain technologies. After they adopt, they learn the technology keeps improving. Then you come into the early majority, and then you have, then the technology peaks, and then it's all the late majority and the laggards who adopt it. Typically, the people who are the innovators or the early adopters and know how to use the technology and how to kind of adopt it appropriately are the big gainers from technology. Okay, the late majority and the laggards are always, they benefit from it, but they don't really get the exponential kind of benefits from adopting new technologies. So if you want to, if we take, say, two technologies, one is CAD, the other is BIM. Okay, we take CAD and BIM. Where do you think CAD is today and where do you think BIM is today? I can look at the chat box. I would want a little bit of thinking on this. Is there any thought process on where is CAD today and where is BIM? If people want to. Okay, I'm not getting any messages, but I think all of us know that CAD is somewhere here. Everybody is using CAD, right? It's right here. There's nothing, nobody's doing manual drafting. And if you went back to the early 1990s or 2000s, early time, CAD was probably somewhere here. People were hesitating to move from drawing to CAD packages. Okay, I remember about 10, 12 years back when we talked about BIM, people didn't even want to listen to us. They said CAD is enough. They said we can do CAD, this, that. Today, where do you think BIM is? Definitely crossed the chasm. It's probably almost reached this part of the curve. Most people are using BIM. Now the question is what kind of BIM, what level of BIM? That's a different question. But people are almost at the early majority, and we are getting BIM also to go down this curve and be completed. Only if you now don't use BIM in the industry, you're not going to be able to get any jobs. People who use BIM here said, okay, because they used BIM, clients gave them work because they were BIM capable. People who didn't have BIM capability were not given work. Okay, so again, there are a lot of points we can discuss on this, might be at some other time. Okay, but there is another curve which I would like to show, which is what they call the hypercycle. So this shows how different technologies actually, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I encourage you to refer to this. You'll see that different technologies. So the Gartner curve tracks technologies, and they show you, and they kind of keep track of where it is on at each year. And you have also specialized technology curves that come from this. So, for example, you can look at something like 3D sensing cameras or something which is almost down the curve, and it's going to become almost mainstream. But you can see that there are a lot of technologies that are coming up the curve. This is the innovative line. And then when some technology comes, I remember in 2010, 2011, people said, oh, you do BIM and everything gets solved. You get your clashes immediately, this, that, but the computing power was not really there to do the scale of BIM we are doing today. So there's a lot of expectations in the concept, but not, then people said, no, nothing, it's not doing anything for us. And then slowly things catch up. Okay, this is typical. And all technologies, we can look at it with these two models, the chasm model and the hypercycle model, and we can see and predict where they're going to go. Now, coming back to this, I'm going to first take up, I'm not going to take it in numerical order, but I'm going to take up the first topic of I think it's, let me see. Okay, I'm going to take a topic on this. So the remaining part of my presentation, I'm going to talk about 3 or 4 projects which we have done at IIT Madras in different categories. And this has been done in the last 1 or 2 years. Okay, so here we are talking about a project where we looked at power drills. Okay, and we understood from sites that a lot of times power drills are not maintained properly. Okay, or they are, they are not, they break down. Even if you have periodic maintenance, there are some issues people were facing with power drills. The productivity, and you can imagine small tools are very important for productivity. And this productivity issue was kind of being faced. And when you look at maintenance of small tools, you will find that, for example, any machine, you find we talk about preventive maintenance. So the blue line here indicates preventive maintenance, where you have periodic maintenance, and this it's good. So today the science says periodic maintenance as per manufacturer's requirement. We change oil in our cars, we do this, we take the vehicles for servicing. Okay, now that is one option. Second option is to do no maintenance or reactive maintenance, which is that only when it breaks down you maintain. We know that that causes too much of problem. Okay, not only that it's more expensive to repair, but the productivity loss due to breakdown is also too high. The question now is, can we do actually predictive maintenance? Okay, so instead of doing a periodic, so even in my car, for example, I don't run it as much as some other cars, but every time the dealer will say, please come and change your oil. But do I actually need to change the oil? Because it's not run more than, say, somebody might have run 5,000 kilometers in the time that I've run only 500 kilometers. So shouldn't I do predictive maintenance rather than preventive maintenance? Okay, so the question is, how do I now know? Can I put sensing on my drill? Can I put some kind of sensors on my drill to know that when it requires preventive maintenance? Okay, so we actually, the student who worked on this actually developed this whole sensing technology. Okay, I will show you a bit. And then used it to measure the vibration of a drill Okay, not only did they measure vibration, they put multiple sensors on it. I'm moving on. And then it was a wireless sensor which was talking to the Arduino platform and all the way to the cloud through to an IoT platform, which kind of did the analysis of the vibrations of the temperature. We then had to put it onto we definitely needed data. So one of the challenges here is to be able to crunch the data to find when a drill, what is a drill that requires maintenance, predictive maintenance. So be able to then do this. I'm not going to get into the detail of this. It will take time, but these are different layers of required for this IoT architecture. Okay, you start from the physical layer where the sensors are there, all the way to the processing. You have the wireless transmission that is happening, processing, and then the application layer, which actually tells, oh, this kind of vibration is bad for the it's starting to require maintenance. So we need this whole system set up, and you will then have, for different combinations, you're able to measure what the vibrations are, integrated with different types of plywood. We tried different vibration patterns, and ultimately, we are still working on this, but we are able to find that you can do this so-called predictive maintenance, which means you don't send all your drills every 3 months for service or whatever. The drill knows when it requires service. Okay, you can save money, you get whatever is required. And also the reverse, you're not, if a drill, for example, has been used a lot, why wait for 3 months? You might need it servicing in 1 month. Okay, or there might be, people use drills with flat drill bits. The usage of the drill also can be monitored. So this is one of the feedback we got, that it is not only the drill performance, but how the worker is using the drill can also be used by sensing the drill elements. Okay, now I'm going on to another topic, which is the use of virtual reality for construction safety training. I think many of you are familiar with virtual reality in some form or the other today. Okay, whether we are using Google Cardboard or using Oculus, there are a lot of options for virtual reality. And we wanted to explore this on one of our students wanted to explore this for MTech project. And the question was, can we develop a gaming system? Can we develop a VR-based gaming system? And it was challenging. Okay, how do you get Unity-based gaming system to do this? And if you go back to the problem, the question is, yes, we do have safety training on sites today. Okay, people have dealt with safety on construction. There's a lot of theory, there is a lot of good practices, there is a lot of knowledge in this area, but how do you actually train for safety? You can't read a book. You can show some videos, you can do this, you can ask them questions, but can we actually give an immersive experience for training? Can we have the workers who are undergoing training make decisions? It's almost like playing a video game. They do something else, something they shouldn't be doing, and something drops on their head, virtually, of course. Okay, or they step onto an edge of a platform, they don't take correct precautions, they fall over the edge virtually. Can we do this kind of a gaming system to do the training? So this was really the basic problem. And again, very sophisticated system, but all of these tools are available for us today on our desktop. The student actually did most of this work during lockdown last year. Okay, so the tools are all available and you can see that. So basically, you have, whether it's Revit, then you integrate it into a Unity engine. You have to do the so-called physics of the problem. That is, you need a physics engine to say that if I'm at the edge and I step over the edge, I'm going to fall down. You have different scenarios that can be modeled. You have the output device, which is a VR device. We wanted to try it with augmented reality, but it was only, we finally decided only virtual reality could be done for the time frame we had. And basically, you have a site here. A worker can actually, go. You have different menu options. They can. So it's like a game. It's like a safety game. Okay, when you get onto site, if he doesn't take the precautions, something will happen to him. If he doesn't take, takes the right precautions, then he gets through without having an accident. So for those of you who have played any of the video games, this is a very, very basic form of a video game of that nature. Okay, and we did a little bit of evaluation. So you have different scenarios which can happen. Okay, and I mean, it's what do you call? Probably it's like all those what do you call shooting games and all which everybody plays today, but it's in the safety thing which results in catastrophic results if you don't take precautions. Okay, I'm not going to again give you details on this for now, but we did try finally evaluating how did this work compared to conventional method versus the VR method. In several points, we found that there was definitely feedback from people who used it saying that there was a lot more what do you call involvement. Okay, the problem is that VR, at least the kind of VR headsets we used were not smooth enough. So people tend to get dizzy. People tend to get a little bit disoriented when you are fully in a virtual environment. So that was a problem. I think that's a problem with several VR systems. Unless you have a very expensive system, you do get this refresh problems. But I think over time that will also be solved. Okay, I'm moving on to a different kind of, this is more of distributed computing. How are we able to look at, progress tracking, progress monitoring? And we are looking at it for a linear construction projects. Okay, so again, we have, what do you call it? We have several types of construction that are linear in nature, okay, as opposed to buildings or factories or, I mean, I don't need to enumerate, but all of you know whether it's a pipeline, a canal, road, railway line, there's so many projects that are linear. And management of these linear projects in some elements are easier. Some elements are a little more different from regular projects because they're geographically distributed. Okay, so how do you actually get a better, and your site office itself might be 100 kilometers away from your workplace. So how do you actually get, and so these are projects in which drones, things like that become very, very useful. So how do you actually, what is the management system, or what is the kind of information system that would be good to be able to manage linear projects? Because you have, I mean, the structure is different from a building or project which is geographically in one location. And we actually tried this with actually electrical cable conduiting, which was a problem, and electrical cable conduiting in an urban area. We'll find that there were many issues that the construction team was facing. I think somebody needs to be muted, or there's a question I can answer. Okay, so again, we went to the web. So I'm not going to again spend too much of time on the architecture, but basically to put a system like this together, you need to have a little bit of coding. You need to be able to bring in different tools from the web, put this together, create it. Of course, getting the data from the site is sometimes a problem. In this particular case, we could not get data from the site. We could only get the issues they faced on site. And you will notice that in the tool that we created, we used IIT campus as a prototype site. Okay, and we were able to then actually do the progress. So now the progress monitoring is in a geographic information system. It's not in a building information model. So you're doing your 4D construction or your 4D simulation or whatever you're doing with the geographic information system. And definitely at a later stage, if you want to overlay a BIM model on the geographic information, let's say this was a water supply system and I had a water treatment plant somewhere, which needed a BIM model. Okay, you can today integrate the BIM model with your GIS. So you not only have a geographically parametric model, but you have a specific building-based parametric model also. This is something we explored many years back, but technology was not ready to be able to do that properly. But I think today the technology can do it. And again, once you have the system in place, you can use it for many decision-making processes. So we call this almost like a decision support system. Okay, I can see when to order cables for a certain area, what type of cables to order, what kind of, I'm going to kind of move. So basically this decision support system enables you to go in here, whether it's for materials, for money, the budget, the manpower, the machinery, schedules. You can manage all this with this kind of a decision support system. Okay, so again, the core here is the database design. The core here is understanding the problem requirements from the customer, what they need. The actual development is you require a lot more of different. And for example, I think the student who did this started with Google Earth, then moved to another open source GIS platform. But Google Earth scripting itself enables you to do many things today. Okay, here is another. So I'm going to talk a little more on progress monitoring in construction, but from a different angle. Now I'm talking about progress monitoring from something like what Dr. Senthil could use for something like IITPalakkad, where we know that there is a planning, monitoring, control cycle. Okay, we know that we develop a plan, we put it into Primavera or Microsoft project, and then how do we know whether it's keeping to plan? We need to monitor the progress. And how do we get the progress data? We get it through DPR or different forms of data. And today we have tablets. The daily progress report data is collected through tablets. Updates happen. And I think in many cases we can see, like we are showing here, you can have BIM models which show you, as planned versus as built, and as planned. Yeah, all these nice reports can come, but the data collection is still from the field. Today has moved to a tablet, and sometimes there's a lot of discussion on, is that data right or not? Is the data coming even from the tablet form right or not? And the question we have, so if you actually look at the state of practice, this was a survey done by my PhD student Varun on different sites, and you see Excel-based quantity calculation and DPR reporting is still the majority. Okay, you have a little bit of other maze of monitoring. But when you go in for a proper, planning and monitoring system with numerical quantities, it's Excel-based. Visual is different. I'm not going to get into that. The question now is, can we use all of these imaging technologies? There's so much available to us, right? Whether it's our cell phone cameras or whether it's drones, whether it's LiDAR, 3D cameras. Today, your iPhone or iPad takes 3D, it does LiDAR based sensing. It's not pure LiDAR, but it develops point clouds. So the question is, can we actually, this is quite a challenging problem. So we have been doing this for a few years now. So trying to see that, let's say I have masonry construction. Can I convert this masonry into here we have a voxel based system. But can I convert this into point clouds, process the point clouds, and then be able to get my quantities accurately? Okay, and so again, the question is, how do we acquire the data and then translate it into a digital model? I'm not so those of you who are not familiar with the term point cloud, it's something which you need to learn as you go. So here, for example, is a typical. So this is a bed which you can take today even a 3D photograph of it. You don't need a LiDAR. You convert it to point clouds, then you have to recognize there has to be some intelligent software which has to recognize and classify this as a bed. So that intelligence is something which we need to do. Even for example, there should be a software that classifies this as a brick wall. How much of the brick wall is complete? Okay, so that is something which we are today working on, and that is not so easy to build, but ultimately we would like to get into you can put a scan data set from a building and it'll recognize. So you go at the end of the day, you either send a drone with a LiDAR or whatever into your building, or automate the whole data acquisition. You bring it into a system which can actually classify all your building elements as to how much progress was there. And then automatically update your DPR and your overall Primavera or MSP schedule. That is the ultimate goal. Okay, last topic is 3D printing for construction. Again, 3D printing is a complex, what do you call, process in many ways. The ultimate aim is to be able to take a 3D model using BIM or CAD and move it into a finish. So I should be able to, just the manufacturing, like computer aided manufacturing. So they should actually say BIM software. Okay, I should be able to take a 3D BIM model and convert it into the physical model by the push of a button. That is the dream. Okay, and if you look at it, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but there's a large 3D printing is not, I mean, just 3D printing. There's just several options of 3D printing available today. There are several ways of deploying the 3D printer physically also. Okay, and these are all what you see are in construction only. I'm not even talking about manufacturing. There are several ways to deploy 3D printers, and whether it's a frame-based deployment, okay, or a robotic arm-based deployment, okay, or you have Dresden, University of Dresden, that kind of fits a 3D printing arm to a like a concrete pump, a boom placer rather. Okay. You have, again, I'm just showing you these so that you get an idea of how much actually goes on in this area. You have, not that everything is 3D printed, you have 3D printed components which are assembled on site, which now is where we are at IIT. We are not yet done a full 3D printed building on site, but we are moving there. Okay, again, when you look at 3D printing, there is a lot of benefits, potential benefits. I would call it just potential benefits which are to be explored. And whether it's flexibility of design. So one of the most essential elements, or the attractive element of 3D printing, is that architects say, I'm not limited to my rectangular forms. I can be more creative, okay, on the shape, on the form of the building. If same productivity issue, more automation, the more productive it can be. Okay, less labor requirements. Okay, and this is an issue. So when we have the kind of housing programs for India, okay, now the scale of housing required, if we do it manually, even though it is going to be done in semi-urban or rural areas, if we do it manually, we are not going to be able to scale to the demands of our population. We need different types of automation to be able to do it. Okay, the quality of work, definitely you'll be able to if you visit our campus, you can see this building. It is predictable quality. Once you get your inputs in, it's predictable quality. But you need work to understand how to predict it. Definitely, safety and occupational health is also improved if it is more automated. Sustainability, we are still working on it to see how much, how much the carbon footprint is, or does 3D printing actually reduce the carbon footprint of the whole process? So these are all elements that we are working with. And I'm going to kind of end with this video here, which shows you what this project was about a little bit. This is the end result of a lot of
So,
Okay,
Professor?
so that ends my presentation, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to take it.
Any questions from the audience? Okay.
Yeah,
I have a question.
one simple question, sir.
Yes.
Can
Please,
you very briefly tell us about the research which is happening in 3D printing and related areas? Very brief.
No, so there are 2-3 parts of 3D printing, especially in construction. The material part is a challenge. How do you make concrete or construction material 3D printable? So what are the additives you use? What are the how do you make it flow? But at the same time, when the next layer is placed on it, it should be hard enough to hold the weight of the top layer, the layer above it, right? So there is a lot in the materials research that's going on. One. Number two, there is quite a bit also in the structural research. As to see now we can't. It's not easy to print a 3D slab. Okay, what kind of geometry do we need to use to be able to build? Be able to take slab-like elements in 3D. Right now, it's only compression. Everything is in compression. Is there any other kind of technology, geometry which can use? So that is still out there. We have to look at it from a very fresh perspective. Okay, we are again using now. People do 3D printing with steel deposition also, metal deposition. That is a different part, but we are not so much using metal deposition. Okay, then we have the whole part of the robotics. Now the material part has to what do you call coordinate with the robotic part. When you are placing it, the nozzle design, when you're going around a bend, how does a nozzle work? That finer control part of it is also very much there. Now, assume all this is in place. You've seen that building which we just did was prefabbed 3D components assembled in place. Can I actually build a house like that with a large scale gantry 3D or a robotic arm 3D? Okay, then now we are going to a different level where you're talking about how the operations take place. And then at the even higher level, I'm looking at the economics of scale, the project management side of 3D printing, the policy side, how do we, so I don't know whether today, how much of concrete is site mix, how much of concrete is ready mix. You'll find so much of concrete is ready mix concrete delivered to site, right? There was a time when ready mix was too expensive because of taxes and this and that. But because of policies, ready mix was made more economical because of taxing issues. And then it became more productive. Similarly, there is a requirement of scale in 3D also. So there are some policy-based issues. We also have another team, a large group of us now looking at recycling waste and using that material for 3D printing. Okay, so there are many different types of issues that need to be addressed from on a research in 3D printing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, there are so many other questions in the chat box. Probably I'll mail it to you whenever you get
Okay,
time.
no, I can see this. If I have time, you tell me how much time there is and
another maximum 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay, 3D printing to be applied to villages in our which computer language should be aware and it. I mean, computer language is what do you say? Is independent in my opinion. You have to know the concept of language, and there are two parts. Again, I think a lot of us in my generation, we had to be able to code everything which we wanted to do. But today, I think understanding what libraries do, what better is the skill. You have to be able to learn the libraries, and I mean, I don't code in Python or I don't do coding anymore, but what I understand from the students who work with me is things like Python are very effective in being able to run your code very fast. And this is what I'm talking in general. But when you look at some of the applications we develop, it just depends on what is the tool that is out there which is appropriate for you. So today, a lot of times is to identify that, if I'm doing Unity, identifying what Unity can do, what kind of physics engine I need to use, how do I bring it to the augment. Each of the projects we discussed there didn't use the same coding type, use different coding types. Okay, but it's the logic of putting things together or the architecture which I look at, and then there has to be someone who, I don't think language should be an issue. I think you should be able to pick up whichever language you need to pick up because the your coding theory, the logic you have in coding is strong. You have to be able to know what kind of libraries to use, what the libraries do. That level is required. And today with so much on the web, it's not so difficult if you're interested in it. Which is now, let me see, where are the questions have moved. Okay, 3D printing in rural India, villages. We have to see how it works. But our hope is that the one reason, see, even when you're going to build a regular house in a village, you have to move your bricks, concrete, cement, sand, this, that, everything there. Okay, and if we are going to use the same model, you can probably have a truck go there with everything, 3D print the house. You know, if it's a mass housing scheme, it's different. We would set up the 3D plant at the site. If it is individual houses, you just bring the truck up, set it up, print it, and move on. Okay, but we are not there yet. We have a long way to go to do that. You know, rough terrain, you know, if it's hilly terrain, something you want to build, you know, we think the transport and logistics becomes much easier if the machine can deliver it on site. And okay, there are groups in the world working on clay 3D printing because it's supposed to be much more sustainable. But making clay behave in a way that it can be 3D printed is also something which is a challenge. Architects use in technology in India. Architects have a big role, but there is, I think, a synergy between what architects have to do and what the technology delivers. So for example, use of BIM, I think, was initially architect driven. Okay, the architect starts making the model in BIM, then it kind of starts in the beginning of the pipeline. But if the architect, but BIM is still growing independent of that, but definitely architects, you know, influential architects have a big say in how the technology develops. How was the technology can be utilized? No, we have to develop the technology. I think Sri Kumar's question, we have to develop the technology. We don't want to just use technology. We also have to develop. 3D printing research is kind of, we have a big team already. Okay, so I'm not sure how we can do this, but if there's, I can put you in touch with the startup group that always looks for volunteers and trainees on it. Language, I think I addressed the issue. Okay, Venkatesh's question on not working. There is a difference between, what do you say, proof of concepts. So when you say not working practically, it is this, I refer you to that hyper curve which I showed you. Okay, when we start off with technology, it doesn't work straight. Okay, you have to use it, you have to learn, you have to kind of, just like a child learning to walk, there will be, you know, scrapes and bruises in the beginning. It doesn't work initially. But if you persist and learn from it, you can then get the benefits of it early. The option is you wait for the others to learn, to use, to get fault, this, that, etc. And then you use it in the laggard mode, which will be much later, but you would have lost the early benefit. Cost of 3D printing machines, it depends. Okay, we are still not costing it, but you can get small 3D printers for, I mean, you know, a few lakhs. But the large ones, we have not yet costed it. Yeah, we need a lot of, I mean, everything from the design code has to be able to take 3D printing, right? You can't just 3D print and ask people to live in it. Everything from the design code has to be made for 3D printed structures, and that is also part of what we are working on. Okay, so I think I've answered all the questions listed. Thank you very much for the questions, and thank you, Senthil.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof, for this wonderful keynote to start this FDP. And you set the context and platform to this FDP. We are very much happy to listen to you and even wanted to continue this forever. And you have rightly set the automation needs and the global trends and the technologies and some of the thought-provoking topics which you are exploring at IIT Madras. And the 3D printing is something like ice on the cake of your presentation, like end with. Thank you so much, sir. And I hope that your blessings are there for us to run
Very
this.
much. Thank you. Thanks again, and all the best for the course to you and all the participants.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Participants, there is some instruction which I would like to actually give you. Please bear with me. We may start the next session after 5 minutes with a 5-minute delay. However, I would like to share some of the instructions to you guys before we get into this next session. So I'll just go through this one by one. Yeah. So this is the instruction which I would like to actually give. In order to maintain the smooth conduct of this event, the participants are requested to mute their mic until they are demanded to unmute. That is towards the end of the session. So it will be much easier and less noisy when the presenter is presenting and extending our respect to the presenters. And for the smooth conduct of the event, the participants are requested to bring out their questions, doubts, clarifications toward the end of the presentation during the question and answer time. And also, I would like you to, if you want to type the question, please type it to everyone so that everyone knows the question what you're asking. Okay. Those who are not getting any chance to ask their questions, you may also send your questions to the 2 email IDs, whatever which is being there. And these 2 email IDs are familiar to you because all these instructions and reminders are coming to you from this. Or we have a WhatsApp group. There also you can post your questions, and we'll try our level best to address all the questions. And attendance during every session is mandated if you are demanding for a certificate, along with the assessment at the end of the whole FDP. So kindly fill the feedback at the end of every session, which will be shared by our CFET team, the IT team, and we can come back at around 11:05 if you are okay with. We'll take a small break and we'll be back by 11:05. And the session is going to be online. If you want to take a little relaxation, you can do that. And please mute your mic. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, welcome back. Dr. Amarnath, before you start, let me introduce you to the participants. Yes. Good morning all again, and yet another interesting topic that we are going to have, which is about digital transformation journey in Indian AEC sector by Dr. Amarnath CV. He's a head BIM strategy at L&T Construction and also president of India BIM Association, and also a chairman of a BIM Forum of Critical Utility Services and National Secretary for the Forum for Human Rights and Anti-Corruption, and principal member for Construction Management Committee, Bureau of Indian Standards. Dr. Amarnath is serving as a head of BIM strategy at Larsen & Toubro over the course of his career. He held positions in India, Taiwan, Spain, Italy, and UK. He is playing an active role at several Digital Belt India initiatives. He is the founding president of the National BIM Society in India, India Building Information Modeling Association, that focuses on digital transformation of Indian AEC sector. He is the chairman of BIM at Governing Council of Focus, Forum of Critical Utility Services, and he is serving as a principal member of Construction Management Sector Committee, as I mentioned, for the BIS. And he is also a serving member of Board of Studies at various universities and colleges, prestigious universities and colleges. He holds his PhD in establishing organization of BIM strategies from National Taiwan University, with 1-year exchange at Imperial Colleges, London. And he has also got masters in global BIM management from University of Barcelona, and also he is contributed to many conferences, journals, and book chapters. His R&D focuses areas are global trends in BIM, digital twin in projects, and lean and green BIM, BIM maturity, and so on. And establishing BIM strategies and BIM education and training is one of the key item that he is holding in his portfolio. Yes, he has a reach of 45,000 plus BIM professionals from 65 plus countries, and he supports as a strategic advisor for national councils and forums for establishing digital transformation in Indian AEC sector, and he is coordinating with the CII, EIG, PAI, and so on, so many other stakeholders of the AEC industry. I mean, the list is very big. You can get it from his profile, and he also has mentioned his mobile number and phone number and all those. He love to have your have connect with you all. And without further any delay, I would like to ask Dr. C.B. Amarnath to start his presentation. And thank you, sir. Thank you for accepting this, and it's yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Senthil, first of all, for having this FDP, and which is very much need of an hour in the Indian AEC sector, because the transformation is very rapid and there is a need for skill development to implementation to handle and several things. So FDP is very important. And also I like to thank all the audience, like roughly 100 plus professionals are here. Some of them may be research focused, some of them are on implementations. So I thank you for all of you to join and listen to our sessions. I won't take much of your session just by sharing the slides, but I like to have more of interactions, your concerns, your understandings, any support, that will be more of a discussion. I will keep Q&A a little bit more than my presentation. So, well, as Dr. Senthil has already introduced, today I will be presenting to you on digital transformation journey in Indian AEC sector. This is from my observation from past few years, maybe 6-7 years, on what's happening in terms of BIM and digitalization in our country. Day in, day out, I have discussions with several leadership teams from different companies, and also policymakers and researchers and students and people working in companies looking for employment, tech vendors. So I'm just sharing you my understanding on these lines. So number one, most important thing is we are in India, we are doing a lot of initiatives like 3D printing, which may be on parallel. I would recommend all of you to mute the mics so that there won't be disturbance for others. So probably what I do is I will mute all, then unmute myself. Okay, thank you. So in India, you would be hearing these terminologies and these initiatives, 3D printing, which may be for a scale model or for real building 3D printing, which is not fully matured yet. But for a small scale, for a residential buildings, this kind of things, people are doing initiatives and things have started. The major challenge would be the materials and the equipments and the kind of investments that may get in, and the kind of the challenges people may face to bring in new things and acceptance for using such things. So 3D printing, how you do, again, you have a data requirement here from a BIM model, which will help you for 3D printing, maybe a scale or real models. People have started using the drones for project surveys and the progress monitoring systems and data capture and so on. Well, it not to the full level, because the drones itself has a limitations on the usage. You cannot run it for more than 30-40 minutes, or there may be a challenge on using the data further. No, but it is already in the market now, the drone usage. And again, the data is captured to bring into the BIM, which may be helping you for better project analysis. And BIM, which is not a new topic, though many people hate listening to the term called BIM, or they want to use new terms called digital twin, virtual design construction, or digitalization, different terms, so that to make people fancy about it. But it's all about information building in the model. That's what BIM, which many of us do. And it's stuck a little bit in a design phase, need to be taken further for a construction activities. And that is the kind of need of an hour in the Indian market, because most of the clients now started asking for BIM. That means it's not only for a design, it's still the handover. They have to hand over the digital twin models. So that's where the challenge, using the BIM for the site activities for safety, quality, procurement, logistics, common data environment, XYZ activities. That's where the current market trends are in the Indian market. Coming to the construction automation, there are some kind of equipments provided by different vendors. It may be automating the cranes to the automated robots for the installations and things. It is to some level for mega scale projects, but it's still a challenge for a small and mid-scale projects to bring in that kind of automation for the site activities. Coming into the laser scanning, which is not pretty new though. There's a lot of companies providing this scan to BIM services in Indian market, but majority of the time it's a kind of scan done in other country and models prepared here and given to them. But nowadays, many of the historical projects and also for progress monitoring for mega scale projects, they started using laser scanning. And laser scanning is not something which you have to buy the laser scanner and do. There are already service providers who would charge you per hour basis or per day scanning basis, and then also there is a companies which can convert that to the model, point loads to the model. And this kind of facilities are already available in the market. It's a good services available. Just need to find out what kind of requirements you need from the laser scanning. And Internet of Things, it's a kind of hot topic which is discussed in a big way in the market, but many of the time these IoT things are not linked with the BIM. And there are very few BIM software solutions available to integrate these IoT solutions. So there are already BIM, some of the vendors where are open BIM, they have this IoT AI linking for the BIM softwares where it becomes very easy during construction and operation phases. So when you are selecting the technologies, you have to look into all these possibilities and then choose the software solutions. Prefab, it's nothing new in the market, but doing the prefab using the BIM model by integrating the CNC machines for that is a little bit new in the market, but it has been done. It's not totally new, but still it has to take its way forward for most of the prefabrication, including for the infrastructure projects. So when you see all these topics, there are many other topics which are not brought in here. But the most important thing you have to understand is it's all about data management. Some technologies you're using, you're bringing the data in, like using the drones, you're bringing the data in. Using construction automation, you're taking the data from the BIM model to the site. And 3D printing, again, you're taking the data from the BIM model to the site. And IoT, you're bringing site and BIM model data together. Laser scanning, you're bringing the data from the outside to the BIM model. And for prefab, you're bringing BIM model to the manufacturing, the data you're taking from the BIM model. It's all about building information modeling. Don't take BIM building as a noun, it's a verb. It's about adding the information into the model. It may be for a buildings or a infrastructures or a smart cities. It's overall applicable. People may use a different terms called infrastructure information modeling, city information modeling, digital twin. It's all one and the same. The main thing is, are we managing the data across the life cycle? Because we have multiple parties involved in the projects, right? Starting from the planning of the projects, you have different organizations like a client, design, contractors, subcontractors, and then coming into the consultants, certification agencies, operation teams. You have many organizations coming in, and there are multiple parties coming in from these organizations for a temporary project, which may be down the line 3 to 5 years, or maybe less than that also. So these people are generating set of data at each of their activities, and they need some set of data for their activities. How do we have that common platform to bring the data from different parties and use the data for different parties? That's where the BIM comes into picture. Well, without BIM also, people are doing the projects from decades, and now with partial BIM, people are doing the BIM. And only when you do the matured BIM in the projects, then you're going to get the return on investment. Many places, when there is no strategies properly set for the way forward in the organization, just people think BIM is only for design. They bring in some modelers, they bring in some object developments, and they start developing the model. Then they say there is no return on investment. There's a problem with the strategic initiatives. They have not planned properly. Where do I pitch in? What is the capabilities I need to build in my company? Or what is that client's going to ask in coming years? Or what is that current clients are asking? When you don't have a strategy set up in an organization or a project level, you have a challenges on questioning on the return on investment. Only a matured BIM can bring you the return on investment again. So anyone having a consideration or anyone challenging you on the return on investment on BIM, please, these are the key things which has to come into discussions. Well, some people say about digital twin. What is it? It's a virtual asset of your physical facility, right? So BIM model, many of the people consider it as only for a design activity. Whatever has been done till LOD 300, 350 by a design team and handed over, that many people consider it as a BIM. And after updating that model during the site activities, many changes happen. They update that model back to the with all existing changes on the site and act to the actuals. then they call it as a digital twin. Again, it's a BIM model only, and you want a common data environment for design, construction, operation. Many people confuse common data environment only for a design, or they don't take it for construction, or many design and construction team don't come in together on a common data. So common data environment is something which is a common platform across the life cycle of a project, where you have the BIM model and everyone are able to coordinate with the data through that common data environment. So people may use different terms. Digital twin, they call it for handover, then record keeping models. It's all about data management. And to be simple, I just wanted to discuss this topic before I pitch into what is the trends happening. So looking into this image, if you see on the top, this is a screenshot taken from Scottish Future Trust. You just go Google Scottish Future Trust BIM level 2, you'll find a complete information on how BIM has to be strategized for a project specific requirements. From the brief stage to the operation maintenance stage, there is a set of templates available, a set of guidelines and workflows checklists, so that if you want to align your projects for level 2 requirements, or you want to get the project to be very much aligned for matured BIM, you just need to go to that page. You have all the details helping you, including the templates and workflows and who has to do what, quality controls, coding. So just align with that. It will help you to align your projects for BIM maturity. So coming into this topic, you can see different boxes here. Phase 1, which is about brief. 2 is for concept design. 3 is for definition. 4 is design. 5th is build and commission. 6th is handover. 7th is operations. And there are 3 items. When I say about BIM, there are 3 important items comes into the BIM model. Without this, it's not a BIM model at all. One is a graphical details. It's about level of detail that model showcase. You have a window showcase, for example, or a door showcase. Just showing a shape of a door also is a door, or adding its texture, materials, and actual details in terms of manufacturer and all these things. It becomes more detailed, and also in terms of level of detail. That's where people speak about LOD 100 to 500. Different countries follow the different detailed information. Some people call it as level of information. Some people call us accuracy levels. Some people call us level of information development. So the next one is level of information. Like what information you are adding into the model. Like you are adding only the parametric information, you are adding the dimensions and the manufacturer, warranty, all these things is like non-graphical data. It's a parameters. That doesn't come directly with the BIM model. That is added by the different stakeholders during the project into the model for each of the object libraries. And then comes a documentation. That is any kind of warranty cards, installation guides, that kind of documentations, again, attached to those objects in the model. Because at the end, I don't want to go and see some documentation, search for some data from other emails and things, and some printed sheets. When you have a model, that means it has all the details, including the parameters, graphical visualizations, and the documents. This is simple BIM. There is nothing beyond this. People may use, we are doing different BIM, we are doing something special. It's all just to fantasize people, nothing beyond that. So looking into these phases, these are the data, like graphical, non-graphical, documentation are the 3 information which gets built from the briefing stage to the operation maintenance phase. And that data keeps on increasing and maturing day by day, because initially when you're planning, you have a limited data on all the 3 axes. And when you're doing the conceptual planning, you have further information on what kind of orientation, what specification, what should be the kind of volume and information, and so on. When you're developing a definition, which is more of architecture and structural models and coming in, and design, you have architecture, structure, MEP, electrical, interiors, fire protection, other related models coming in. And the design works are done till stage 4. Then the construction team, contractors and subcontractors come in phase 5 and 6, where they have to use the BIM model for their actual executions. And maintenance team, they used to use the digital twin model for their linking with their FM systems. So within this cycle, if you see, you have multiple companies. Like in the phase 1 and 2, it's more of project management consulting firms. And then phase 2 to 3 to 4, it's more of design companies. Phase 5 and 6, it's contractors and subcontractors. Phase 7, it's more of clients and operation maintenance organizations. These are the main teams which are getting in each of these phases to use the data, build the data, use the data, whatever. Okay. So at the end, it's all about having the right data for any party so that you don't need to waste time, or there is no question of rework. There is no question of, there's a key thing is transparency. Transparency gets added in a very big way, because I don't need to go and ask someone, and I don't need to wait for someone to give me the data for next 2 to 3 days or 1 week or so on. And any changes happening on the site or a design, everything is updated on the model, and everyone gets a notification who are relevant to that. You may have a concern that is all the data getting shared with everyone? No, you can fix that requirements. What data should be discussed with what access should be given to whom. So all those things can be set within the software solutions. So this is overall BIM, and the main focus people should focus is on open BIM. There's a two different wings in the market, like open BIM, closed BIM solutions. Closed BIM solutions are something which you cannot collaborate with other tech vendor solutions when you're using these closed BIM solutions. Open BIM solutions are the ones which, once you start working on those solutions, you can import, export with other tech vendor solutions very easily. So keep this in mind when you have started using any technologies for your initiatives in a company or a project. And the most important is for the maturity level of 3, it is an integrated BIM solution. That means it's not that I as an organization, as a part of a contractor, if I'm matured, the project cannot be fully matured. I need to make sure my partners, including the design firms, consultants, and the clients and operation teams, everyone are able to come through this journey for using the BIM. So that's where many people face the challenges, because the BIM models is getting developed, people are not using for site. Some of the time site people have started using and building the data, design teams are not able to update the data back. And even after construction team give the data and a digital twin to the operation team, they're not able to integrate for their facility maintenance systems. So these kind of challenges are there, because the main question here is, what is BIM? Where do I get the return on investment? When you start understanding BIM as a holistic approach and integrated BIM, you will start realizing the return on investment for each of the parties. Looking into the global trends in the market, well, this is one of the research I performed in 2016. It has, if you even go to Google now and say global trends in or BIM research, just say BIM research, you will find this article. And it's a complete information on what's happening in 60 to 65 countries on BIM initiatives. And it's not fully matured yet in the global sector. BIM has, if you are expecting to deliver BIM projects at level 3 or integrated BIM, still technology vendors have to transform their softwares to completely cloud-based. ISO or whatever the standards should be very much fully developed and implemented. And all the organizations across the life cycle, design to construction to operations and clients, everyone should be mature to go through this BIM platform. Then only level 3 will be fully activated. And so BIM is not fully matured yet. If someone is saying we have done a complete BIM, it's a wrong misconception people may have. So it may be at a level 2 requirements or design and construction activities done. So if you see the kind of developments, the most of the time it's a North American part and other regions on the American side where the BIM developments actually kick-started with. And then the Nordic region where the technology solutions have started. And then some of the countries have, most of the countries have their BIM standards locally. From past 15 to 20 years, each of their country-specific standards have started, organization-specific started, then came in the national level BIM standards, and then came in the ISOs now, which is a global BIM standards people say, but it's not fully globally aligned yet. So there are different kind of initiatives in different countries to support this in the BIM transformation journey. But trust me, this is a kind of initiative. There is no question of seeing back. It's only looking forward on the BIM. There may be kind of concerns. 6-7 years ago, when you have to discuss with some industry, people used to say, should I go with it or not? Kind of question. Now, this is the only way forward for the further developments or digital transformation or to align with Industry 4.0 requirements or whatever. So this kind of transformation is happening, and it's also a requirement. People are focusing, some people may be here researchers, some people may be academicians, some people may be industry people, some are into policies, and some of them are technology solution providers, some of them are from industry. See, at the end, it's a holistic approach. It's an ecosystem that need to be built within a local market and also the global sector, so that services can be delivered, the clients get matured, the services get provided as a complete platform. Then only BIM realistic way comes in. many companies still have a challenges in terms of having object libraries itself. Many tech vendors promise that they will provide a BIM object libraries, but there are no object libraries available which are usable for all the kind of infra projects. There are a lot of challenges yet in the market, and day by day, different researchers and the industry people have started addressing it. And I think way forward next, at least 5 to 10 years, it will be the kind of way to work, because before handmade drawings to the CAD, how it has shifted. Now, without CAD, no one works. The same way, without BIM, people will not be able to align any projects. So that will be the kind of need of an hour in coming years. And if we are starting our journey very early, it will be helping us to be on a leadership lines in the market to support this transformation. And that's where I think most of you are attending this session today. And I believe there are many interesting sessions happening in coming days. So this is more on a BIM related initiatives. As I said, this is more of a national initiative, what's happening globally. Like how you hear about the noise we make from India BIM Association, day in, day out, several events, meetings, discussions, forums. So this is a kind of national forum for our Indian community. The same way, 40 plus countries have their national forums. And these are not national forums which was formed 10 years ago or something. Even day in, day out today, few of the new forums have started, like Brazil, Africa, UAE, and there are more forums getting formed. Currently, there are 40 plus. If I see way back in 2016, before we started our India BIM, there are hardly 15 to 20 forums or 30 forums at that point of time. Now, each of the countries have their own national initiatives, like how you have Indian Institute of Engineers, or Council of Architecture, or Builders Association, or Facility Management Association. Like that, for BIM also we have a community, and that is like India BIM Association. And we have the same way in Canada, BIM Council, BIM Forum for Brazil, and BIM for Africa, BIM in Thailand, BIM Association. Like that, we have several associations. We, as a national initiative within the country, we have made a collaborations, MOUs with almost 12 such forums in other countries. And we have several events. And this is mainly to support this digital transformation journey in our Indian EC sector. And we, being India BIM Association, we focus on 4 key areas. One is on policy development, second is on events, third is on certifications, and fourth is on capability building in the market and connecting the networks. So the most important, because this is more of a faculty development program, we have to make sure that let us understand what's happening with respect to BIM in the global sector. And what I'm sharing you today as a slide is nothing new. It's a 2017 research. Maybe now 2021, a lot of developments would have been changed. I'm just telling 2017 base, what is the kind of development. Roughly 30 plus countries have BIM as part of their curriculum in many tier 1 and tier 2 universities. And some of the countries have been listed here. This is a research. You can find the article, complete detailed research paper is available. What kind of developments in terms of education is happening in each of these countries as up to 2017. You can find this research paper. I can share you if you are interested in. Firstly, we need to understand, when I'm saying BIM as a curriculum, BIM into the curriculum, it's not like bringing in one course as a BIM fundamentally into the curriculum. It may be for your tertiary education systems, it may be for undergrad or postgrad, or maybe for research or a postdoc or whatever, or executive programs from the universities. It's not just bringing one course as a part of the curriculum. Many of the time when we discuss with several universities, they say, yeah, we do have BIM in our course. We have 1 or 2 courses on BIM fundamentals. What is BIM, how BIM? That doesn't help further to bring in the actual industry requirements. So BIM is nothing new. It is not a subject to be introduced as a separate subject. It's a thing to be diffused in each of the courses what you have currently in your programs. It may be your undergrad, it may be for a civil, it may be for a mechanical, it may be for an architecture, it may be for a management department, or it may be for a legal schools. For a management department and legal, they are like they're not a main people. So for them, it may be kind of a multidisciplinary course, but the actual people in the AC sector may be civil, mechanical, and architecture. These are the people need to have BIM diffused into many of their courses actually existing. So if you see the global market, initially the way it was taken is some of the universities, what I'm saying is from past 2 decades, 2 to 2.5 decades, where BIM journey has started. Initially, people don't used to call it as BIM. They started naming it as virtual design and construction, where they had it as a separate courses in their university curriculums. And then way forward, people realized it's not only for a one department perspective, it should be multidisciplinary. Then they bring in together different department students together and make them understand as a holistic approach. Then further developments was more on a project specific. See, BIM is not something to be learned as a subject alone, but it should be very much project focused, how it has to be implemented in projects. When I go to an actual project, you have multiple parties coming in, right, from different backgrounds. And when you are learning also, it should be the same way. You should know each other, what kind of roles and responsibilities each of these different capabilities will be built for each of them. It's more of a multidisciplinary project focus. And also then further going in, people started having the collaboration with different universities from different countries and the industries, and they made it more of a global courses. And that's where you have some of the BIM courses even in India, some of the universities do have that collaboration with 5-6 universities from different countries, and they understand the cultural differences and the technologies and language barriers and everything comes in picture. So you are understanding on a global BIM project perspective. And then comes in more of teaching methodology. See, it's not only about academic faculty teaching the courses, but how can you bring in different industry experts? How about the policymakers, researchers together to make that course very much comprehensive? That's the kind of trends which has been followed these days, and more on industry focused real projects. And further, it's more of a because it's boring these days. Many people focus on it's a online education. Things have changed already now, so it's more of online education. So why don't we follow more of a flipped classroom, having something which has to be very much repeatable? That will be more of a recordings people follow, and then more of a interactive sessions happens during the sessions in the actual classrooms. So that's the kind of way forward which is in terms of education in BIM which is happening. And I think it's a need of an hour for many of the universities now to think on diffusing BIM into their curriculums, not as a separate subject, but be part of several. It may be for estimation or for scheduling, or maybe for design, or it may be for a quality control, whatever. It's part and parcel of the same project, because initially you used to deliver through CAD way, and now we are going to deliver through BIM way. Then all the things, activities you do should be BIM aligned. So you can have a understanding on what's happening globally on these lines, and maybe it will help you to develop your curriculums on those journey. And this is about the forums, as I said, like 50 plus BIM forums identified in 40 plus countries. This was one of the slides shared by Brazil BIM Forum during their launch event, because they had recently launched their forum. The same way several forums are getting launched, and we want to come together as a voice of a community, as a global forum. That's one of the initiative we're working on, to bring together all the forums together on a global initiative, which will support in standardizing the education, standardizing the events, standardizing the certifications, standardizing the policies and implementations, and also supporting and creating synergies between different countries and services. That's the overall agenda of having that kind of global initiatives. And within locally, we are all working to bring together technology vendors, policymakers, researchers, industry people, make them understand what is that ecosystem which would really help for delivering the projects. Because at the end, when the efforts from different parties come together, then only project happens. It's not one company completely delivering the projects, including the maintenance. So that's where our national initiative is focused on a digital transformation journey support. So we're now working closely with Bureau of Indian Standards also to focus on national BIM standards developments, because whatever we say about ISO 19650 and other standards are very generic, may not be able to support you on a project specific standardized guidelines. Maybe how do I implement for airports or metros or high speeds or water treatments or power transmissions or healthcare, whatever. So it doesn't help you to align on those lines. And what used to happen before ISO come in is, India is a market which used to provide BIM services to the global sector. Like whatever the BIM startups and companies which has been evolved in the Indian market from the past 2 decades are mainly focusing on the clients, global clients, and providing them the services from having their team set up here. So that kind of capabilities is already well developed in Indian market, but the main challenge is, how do I deliver the local projects within India? How do I convince the local clients, and how do I bring in BIM as a requirement, as a holistic approach, including for the construction management and delivery? That is a key challenge. But COVID one side is started helping clients realize that BIM is a need of an hour, digital transformation is a need of an hour, data management is required. Everyone cannot go for meetings and every places, and site data need to be activated. And it's like work from anywhere, study from anywhere, and coordinate from anywhere kind of things have come in. And that's where BIM enabling has happened much easier these days. If you speak to many clients, including Dr. Senthil, he will say how it has become easier now in CPWD for their own IITPalakkad campus to bring in BIM as a key requirement. And these are kind of initiatives which have started in many client agencies. And some of the clients have seen that as an important requirement now, especially in this COVID season. Many people who used to resist saying that, no, BIM is not required, now started thinking due to COVID has really enabled them. And I think looking forward, there's the way forward for all of us to work. And I would also request all of you to join hands for this national initiative, which is an NGO and a not-for-profit society. You can be a member if you're a student, as a student member, professional member, or industry can join hands as a corporate membership. Institutes can join as a institutional memberships. You can join for us events. We are planning different kind of initiatives together. So we welcome you all. Looking into why do we need this India BIM Association? It's mainly to build an ecosystem in the Indian AC sector and also collaborate with other countries and forums to understand what is the way forward in those regions and what can we align towards those global requirements, and aligning our micro level within the country, what is the kind of initiatives and connects which need to be built between technology, process, and policy people. Because at the line, if you don't have proper standards to implement BIM, or if you don't have academic students graduating with BIM capability, or if you don't have a center of excellences to support this kind of initiatives, things may not move. That is a policy field initiatives. When it comes to technology, it may be any tech vendors. It may be Autodesk or Bentley or Trimble or Dassault or Bexel or Akka or Economies or Invicar, or there are 25 to 30 tech vendors available in the market. These are some of the tech vendors, aligning them towards what is the requirement. And hardware, because hardware requirements are changing drastically when BIM. This is a kind of scary thing. When we are planning for BIM, the main challenge is, do I need to procure a laptop which is like 3 to 4 lakhs range? So understanding these things, and also network, which is a main challenge. We can all speak about fancy BIM, but when there is no proper network to connect the common data environment, it becomes a challenge. 4G, 5G kind of things are very much important to have that synchronization between different parties when you are working on a global projects or parties located in different regions within a country. And coming to the process field, in fact, the technology vendors are bringing in several initiatives and technologies to support you for implementation. Policy people are developing capable people and standards, but industry people have to use it. If they don't use it, it becomes of no use. Then things are not aligned. The efforts may not be aligned from all the sides. It may be from a design company, contractors, subcontractor, PMCs, facility maintenance, client agencies. These are the actual people who are going to use the technologies, equipments, and the standards for actual delivery of projects. So there's a need for strong connect between these three areas. That's the key work we do at the India BIM Association, which was pretty separated, which was not very well connected in the market. From past 3 to 4 years, we were able to make that connects. We are able to coordinate between these people, understand these are at least they need to know who are the parties and which are the companies and which are the technologies, what are the policies required, what kind of implementations can be done on projects. So that connects we are building. It's more about connecting the dots. And looking at our India BIM Association, we are influencing a lot of the client agencies, starting from different ministries which are involved in AEC sector digital transformation requirements. It may be for housing and urban affairs, military engineering services, health and family welfare, Central Public Works Department, airport authorities, Niti Aayog, and some of the associations like Builders Association, CREDA, India Green Building Council, TERI, Bureau of Indian Standards, and then CII, and different universities and so on. We are trying to influence and make clear on what is the requirement, why do they need to expect BIM, how do they deliver BIM, and how to expect BIM. All these things we are standardizing, we are trying to influence that. And down the line, it's not something which can be done, because organization transformation itself takes years. We are speaking about a market level, at a country level transformation. Obviously, it will take some years, and we have started, we have foundations that are laid now. And it will take few years, and then we'll be very well connected. We'll be able to work together as a common initiative, because at the end, when you look at a global market, we think about our country. And when we look ourselves, we think about our family. It's a step-by-step approach. So we do have several awareness sessions down the line. If you see full week, this week fully packed, every day I have 1 or 2 sessions happening. It may be within a company, for outside market, or whatever. It's mainly the most important thing is awareness and directioning. It's not just a technology awareness. It's about what is the concept of actually implementing it. Where do I get the returns? What is the kind of skill building which is required? What is the kind of strategies that need to be set? A lot of awareness sessions we keep doing from past 3 to 4 years. And by now we have reached to several thousands of people from different sectors. And I think many people have realized this is a need for an hour, and they started joining hands with us on this line. And previous to COVID, it was more of physical meetings. So you can see a lot of photos before pre-COVID. Now it's all post-COVID. It has become much active now. I don't need to travel anywhere. I can just sit in one place and start doing the sessions and having awareness session and bring in several experts. It has become much wonderful now, because many people never used to agree with that online things before. Now everyone are very much aligned. And coming into the BIM maturity, which is a key requirement, because to understand BIM, because many people challenge that I have seen BIM, we have implemented BIM, we didn't see returns, we don't want to go with it. These are the kind of questions or challenges you face many times. And some people who are completely understood on the strategic implementation of BIM, they will not have this kind of questions. The major problem is, if you're, it's not important to just do BIM. It's important to do the BIM in the right way. Then only you can see the return on investment. If you just do the investments in the wrong situations, you will be held up with no gains. It may be loss also sometimes. So strategic decisions are very much critical, no matter at a project level or at an organization level or at a country level. So this is one of the maturity model developed by Mark Bew and Mervyn Richards. Many people understand this as a UK BIM maturity model. And in fact, I have one session set up with Mark Bew tomorrow for our company, LNT, to brief on strategies. What is the way forward? So in fact, let me brief you on what are these sessions. Like level 0 means no BIM at all in a project. So no one is aligned on BIM journey. No deliverables from the BIM is used in level 0. Level 1 is something like BIM has been pretty active in the design phase activities. People are developing the model. People are using it for some types of analysis. And design teams are very much capable. They have some local organization specific standards. Like I'm an XYZ design organization. I have some standard approach for BIM. So that is like a standard on an organization specific standards. And then BIM is not connected from construction to operation phases. It's only on a design journey. And there is no common data environment and all. Even if it is there, it's only within the design team. Coming into level 2, the projects has BIM delivery from design phase and construction phase up to the handover. That means design contractors, subcontractors, most of them are aligned with BIM journey. And they're using the BIM platform for design, analysis, construction monitoring, safety, quality, procurement, whatever. And they're following with some national standards. That means at least there is some standard which many of the organizations are aligned. Because I'm some XYZ contractor, there's XYZ person from another design company. We both may not have the same standards, right? So level 2 is something, at least they have some common standard among them. And that many of the time occurs only when there's a national kind of standards. And these are kind of situations in level 2. Level 3 is something like, and sorry, I forgot to tell you, level 2 also has a common data environment for collaboration between the design and the construction teams. Level 3 is something like you have a design, construction, handover, and operations, everything happening through the BIM journey. And all the parties in the life cycle are very much BIM aligned. And they are following the IS standards or some global standards or even some national standards which are very much aligned, so that they have a better standard approaches among the different parties collaborating between different countries. For example, if it's a project within the country, then most of the people are from the same country. You follow the national standards. If it's a project from some other country, they focus on ISO, then you have that ISO capable certified organizations within the project. So, and also the technologies, all the technologies should be cloud-based. There is nothing called I need to install a software for analysis or a field management or for operations. Everything should be cloud-based. You just need to log in, log out, and do things. So the requirement on a hardware requirements will change at this point of time. And tech vendors are very much working on this level 3 from the COVID start, because this is the time for them to activate those things. If you speak to any tech vendors, they have started focusing on integrated BIM and how do they integrate different technology vendors platforms or their own technologies and provide as a holistic solution for a companies so that they should not face that challenges later. And if you ask for level 3, there are not even XYZ company in the global sector who are capable for level 3 yet. It may take another 3 to 4 years at least, because there are no completely technologies. For example, I was speaking to one of the tech vendor called ATAL. They said 30 to 40% of the softwares are already cloud-based now. Now tell me, how many of these tech vendors in the market have already converted their technologies to cloud-based fully across the operations cycle? Because many of the tech vendors do not even have a technologies for design to construction and overall life cycle, or they may have only for a build environment sector, they may not have for infrastructure sector, or they may not have for a smart cities. This kind of situations are there yet in the market. It has to mature. It will take its time. Many of the projects in India, if you ask what is the situation, where the organizations have already realized BIM and they realize that it's a need of an hour, they are many of the time at level 1. And they are in the starting stepping stones of level 2, where they started activating BIM for the site activities. And there are only few projects in the Indian market are with level 2, to name only very few. And level 0, many companies are still sitting here because I think my client is not asking now anything. I will sit like this. I will think of changing only when my clients start asking. And trust me, today your projects are not coming with a BIM as a requirement in your RFP. Suddenly, next 6 months, there is a client putting in their requirements as RFP BIM requirements on different lines. Then your company will not be able to deliver immediately that services. There you will face a challenge. So capability building at this point of time is a need of an hour, because down the line it's going to be the requirement and every client starts asking. And then if you want to be very competitive in the global market, then you have to transform. And the companies which may not think this is a requirement, they will be left aside, and it will be a challenge for them to collaborate with other parties collaborating on a project with a BIM way. Looking into the education system, as I was telling, it's more of a strategic approach to diffuse BIM in the education, in the tertiary education system. I've done one research before, how to bring in BIM in the education. Phase 1, first you need to understand what is the kind of BIM topics that need to be brought into your education curriculum. Phase 2, what are the core subjects in which BIM has to be diffused? Phase 3, what are the different departments in the university which has to bring in BIM in their curriculums, or it should be multidisciplinary courses. Phase 4, BIM course level. Should it be for what should be in undergrad, what should be in postgrad, what should be for research focus in the universities. Phase 5, tertiary education levels, like what levels you have to take and what is the key initiatives to be taken for that. And phase 6 is more about bringing different parties. It may be technology vendors, policy, researchers together to make that curriculums. It's not that I'm a professor and I have to prepare. It may be challenge for one person to do, or 2 to 3 people in a university to do. It's a teamwork. You develop a curriculum by joining hands with the tech vendors, industry people, researchers, policymakers. Then you bring in a better curriculum into your university. At the end, what is required is students are coming with an intention to get a jobs after their graduation. And if you are aligning our curriculums on those lines, students will be very much able to be placed in the industry requirements. Then only they can be BIM graduates and specialists. And now it's not a challenge, because to have a global education by different experts, now universities have already started expecting from different experts to deliver guest lectures. And it has become much easier for even the faculties and the industry people to do that online, and also for the students. Coming into the job market, which is very important, because why are we doing getting the certification or education? At the end, need to do a startup. Either I may be interested to have a startup, or I may need to get a job, or what you may want to go for a higher studies. Only these 3 areas, right? I don't think anything else we come with. So we should be able to understand our curriculum should be aligned for these requirements, because it should not be always on a job oriented. We have such a big young population in the country. Everyone cannot be getting job easily in the market. So there's a challenges, but startup initiatives are very much on need for BIM journey in the current market. So that kind of education is also very much important, helping, supporting the students within the communities to build that startup capabilities, so that they come out of the university, they have their own startups to deliver. Because when we look into the topmost tier 1 universities globally, the students don't take a certification for getting into job. They take the certification for having a startups. Technical jobs are plenty in the market, but paid very less, which is more on, if I'm capable on any of the BIM software, it may be for modeling or a planning or estimation or any of the BIM implementations on the project lifecycle. Those are technically capable people. So there are different technologies. Again, you need to be able to have that alignment, because different countries, companies, and different countries and different projects need a different technical capabilities, different software capabilities for you. Managerial is again more on a managing the projects. It may be for a design phase or a construction phase or a facility management phase or a project overall project phase. These are like BIM managers for a design, construction, or operations, or even project managers. They have more on a workflow, deliverables, alignments, standardization, skill sets. And these are currently, like I can say that there are available people, and which is matching the industry requirements. Technology is like a surplus. There are plenty of people, but you're not able to accommodate all of them for the jobs, because everyone come with a background saying, I know Revit, I know Navisworks, give me a job. Because that's not the key requirement in BIM alone. We have to understand the market demands. It should be demand versus supply, which has to be very much understood. Strategic is more of a leadership teams, which is very much important in a company specifics or a project specific. These are the people who understand the global transformations, global requirements, and strategically align the companies and develop the roadmaps and support in investments, and also team building, and also proper selections on the technologies and equipments and for the way forward in the company. And also at a project level, this may be project strategic people who understand the project client requirements and align other organizations and parties to make sure that deliverables are met across the life cycle. So the strategic line, there is a requirements coming in a big way, because the transformation is happening drastically. But many people don't have this kind of skill sets yet in the market. So that kind of skills are also prerequisite. So it can be combination of these things depending on the kind of role you are going to play in the market. I just want to give a brief overview about my company where I currently work. This is Lazan & Toubro, one of the key contractors globally, delivering plenty of infrastructure projects, and one of the global leaders. And in fact, being in a global market, you have to align for the global requirements. So BIM is something which is internally drive, no matter if our clients are asking or not. We have a complete internal drive in the company that this is the way forward. And there are some client projects which is already like airports, metros, high-speed trains, and some of the substations and so on, which is already healthcare projects, commercial residential projects, which is with BIM mandate already. And other projects also we are doing with BIM, because it's not client is asking, because it's a need of an hour change. And what we do here, what I do here is I'm setting up the strategies for the company for the digital transformation journey for the next 3 to 4 years roadmap. What is the kind of investment? What is the kind of changes? What is the quarterly initiatives for each of the companies within L&T construction? And that is helping further to take the initiatives and investments and so on. And on the other side, I also take care of a BIM Academy, which is supporting in skill development, which is only for internal skill development of a company employees. Because since it's an internal drive, BIM is not only for a design. We want to activate the safety, quality, procurement, tendering, contracts, and also design execution teams. So a lot of trainings are happening in and around. Day-to-day trainings will be conducted for our different project requirements. It's completely, some of them are project specific, some of them are organization specific trainings, some of them are leadership driven awareness sessions. So we have a lot of these activities through the BIM Academy. And the third area I focus is on ISO 19650 certification, because that's one of the requirements for a global market project requirements when the client starts asking. So we have to standardize our workflows and things and align our data management of the projects on those journeys. So these are my roles in the company. We have at least 40% of our projects currently, live projects, are done with BIM. And down the line, we are expecting a majority of them to be completely driven with BIM. I will be showing you some of the key about our company. If you take L&T, it has a different companies, including hydrocarbons, reality. So L&T construction is one of the biggest wing. And within L&T construction, we have several independent companies like buildings and factories, transportation infra, heavy civil, power transmissions, water and effluent treatments, metallurgical material handling, geostructure, smart world communications, renewable energy. So each of the companies, there should be a kind of strategic plan set up. And each of the companies have a several kind of business units which focus on different types of projects. For example, if I say buildings and factories, they mainly focus on airports, healthcare, residential and commercial projects, and data centers, this kind of projects. So different ICs have a different kind of project focus and focusing on each of these areas. And for us, when I say digital transformation, it's for each of these companies. And each of these companies within which has a different departments like a design, execution, planning, quality, safety, supply chain, contracts, formwork. For us, BIM is for all of these people. It's not just to limit for design or execution. So a lot of awareness, capability building activities happening in the company so that we activate some leadership teams and some youngsters in each of these departments so that they are ready to workable for the BIM projects. Because if you want to realize BIM benefits out of implementation, if you are not having all these parties as part of the journey of your BIM projects, you cannot get the ROIs. This is very much clear. So understanding these on the line, way forward, we are activating each of these people to take it further. So some of the case studies, I don't know, you would have attended some of our previous sessions also. I'm showing you the slides, which just to give you a brief on different types of projects we currently work on BIM. Most of our airport projects like Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Hyderabad, and some of the foreign airport projects are driven with BIM. And Airport Authority of India itself has brought in a BIM as a mandate for the projects. One of the very specific project which has a level 2 BIM, I can say Bangalore Airport is completely driven with level 2 requirements when the client is planning to manage the digital twin model for the maintenance operations. Residential projects and commercial projects, this is a place where the BIM journey has actually started in the companies. So we have a very good capable team to do this kind of residential and commercial projects. Stadium projects, this is from a Moteria stadium. This is also driven with BIM as a requirement. Smart infrastructure projects, even for this kind of smart utilities and all, we are doing with BIM so that you understand any kind of clashes between the different types of pipelines. It may be gas line, water line, sewage lines, XYZ things, electric lines. So it will be very much easier to plan the smart cities or communities, whatever. Water and effluent treatment plants. So most of the water treatment projects in our company is driven with BIM. It's not because of a client requirement. Not even a single project. Not even 5 to 10% of those projects from water treatment are client requirement. It's internal driven by our teams, so that they realize the benefits of BIM. They are driving it. And this is for metro, sports, and harbors. Whatever the metro projects you're currently seeing, including the high-speed train projects, all of them are with the BIM requirements. And nuclear and special bridges projects, where BIM plays a major role because you have a lot of minute detailing to happen, prefabrications and things. So without BIM, it becomes a very challenging, including for the time planning and monitoring. And then comes some metallurgical and material handling projects, where very critical details has to be fabricated. Many elements has to be fabricated and installed. Without BIM, it becomes a pretty challenging here also. And the power transmissions and distribution, many of the substations which are done for our global clients are a kind of prerequisite of a BIM. So it's completely driven through that BIM requirements in power transmissions. Geostructures, again, not much of client requirements, but it's internal drive. And railway projects, there's a little bit of challenge on railways, but I do see that the global market, including the ministries, there's a lot of push on the highways, roadways, kind of benefits they're seeing. And it's also a way forward for us. We're working on those lines. So many of the time you may think BIM here, it's more of, we are currently focusing on building our common object libraries, then having the BIM modeling capability in different business units for different project types. Because at the end, if you don't have the object libraries for all the type of projects, how are you going to do the BIM? BIM model is nothing but a combination of different objects and parameter building. And then comes, we are also focusing on 4D BIM, 5D BIM, and whatever you say more on a common data environment, site data capture, some of the projects with laser scanning, safety planning, quality control, digital twin. So these are the kind of initiative, including the AR, VR usage for the projects. So different project has a different requirements. When there is no requirement, we decide the requirements for the project where the returns are more for the company, and then we take it forward. And we are making sure that the next future further our strategy says that we should have our partners also enabled with BIM, and we will be collaborating with most of the partners who are digitally enabled rather than collaborating with other partners. So this will help us and our clients to have a better transform projects across the life cycle, and it will be adding more value to our client base also. So that's the kind of overall discussion I want to bring in today for the session. And I think we have another 15 minutes or so to have a discussion. So it's more of a Q&A. Feel free to post your questions on the message or unmute your mic. You ask your question, then I can brief you. That's also workable. I do see there are some set of questions already on the chat box. Shall I start addressing them, Senthil?
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
And please do remind me when the session is, the time clicks, no? You please let me know, I will start.
Sure.
Close.
Sure.
Yeah. So the first question here. The first question, Dr. Amarnath, you mentioned open BIM and integrated BIM management. As president of India BIM Association, can you briefly dwell on the status of adoption of these two in India? Yeah, well, what's happening here, the most important thing is many people in the Indian AC sector still don't have a knowledge on what is the difference between open BIM solutions and closed BIM, which are very much IFC compliant, which are very much building smart aligned, which will let you collaborate with different other technologies and technology vendors, which will let you collaborate with other partners in your projects, is more of open BIM solution. That means I'm developing some data or a model or analysis in some particular software in a BIM. Then will I be able to use that same software in other platforms of other vendors or other partners collaboration? So that is going to help on open BIM. And if you ask what is the kind of situations in the market, now we are actually some of the open BIM solution vendors like ACA from Italy, Bexel, they're already our partners. We are also insisting other tech vendors to focus on this. We have already started understanding from other tech vendors that they're looking for more of integrated BIM now. They started their journey thinking on those lines. And we have started spreading this message of open BIM requirements, because down the line, when we're saying about integrated BIM or level 3 BIM, where open BIM becomes a key requirement, without that it becomes a very challenge, until and unless you're only going with all your partners are going only with one technology vendor solutions. Yeah, and these initiatives are started. A lot of sessions are happening on those lines. So that's a question to answer to Ajit. Further, is integrated BIM management extended to facility management in India? Yes. So for example, I was speaking about Forum of Critical Utility Services, where you have all the critical utility area for people. And we, being part of that, I'm a chairman for BIM, BIM wing in that. So what we are doing is we are connecting with all the departments. It may be for firefighting or for intelligent management systems or green buildings, or it may be for elevators or XYZ things, whatever is on the critical utility area. We started finding the way forward together on a maintenance side area also, including with IFMA and all these things. So the main challenge for getting into facility maintenance here is people are not getting the digital twin to do the maintenance, because the capabilities in the market are limited to the design capabilities. That has been a little bit mature to construction now. And until and unless you are able to give the digital twin and the clients see the benefit of linking it and how they link it. And the main challenge is also on the costing of the technologies for facility maintenance. Some of the technologies are so expensive, which you cannot implement for small scale and mid scale projects or even large scale projects. So there are some technologies in terms of BIM, if I say, there's BIM softwares which are monthly subscription, and there are BIM softwares which are yearly subscriptions. There are BIM softwares which are ranging from 2,000 to 3,000 per month, and there are BIM softwares which are up to the range of 10 to 20 lakhs per year license. So again, it's a strategic decision, which software should I really go? If you're stuck with a closed BIM and you develop the model, then you are not able to pitch for open BIM. Then how are you going to go with the cheaper solutions? So that's where OpenBIM helps you to get through the challenge. And I think facility management team has to be activated now at this point of time, and also construction team. This is the kind of need of an hour in the market. We are doing our best to bring that awareness in the market, because the kind of challenge is return on investment, and giving them a brief on that will really align them. Next question is, you are mentioning about Scottish page for the reference. Can you give the details of the page? Just Google Scottish Future Trust BIM level 2. You will get every detail. I think that information should be good enough for you to start researching on that. Similarly, at the undergraduate level, for an architect or civil student to be BIM industry ready, what kind of syllabus update would you prefer and what would help them? First, keep technologies aside. Don't think BIM as a software and don't go for any technology vendor collaboration. First, start bringing what is actually BIM required, what is the industry requirements, how do I deliver projects with BIM? It may be for a small and mid-scale companies also. Now the challenge is not to provide BIM for a mega scale companies. Now the challenge is how do I bring in BIM for a small and mid-scale companies, where the challenges are already there. If you can build a team on that, and as a holistic solution, if you can start providing education on those lines, it will really help. The fundamentals should be very strong for the students on what is BIM as a overall data management across the life cycle, what kind of deliverables, what kind of technologies are available, what kind of standard approaches should be followed. Then you decide what technologies to go. But the major problem with many universities, I see that technology vendors, they're providing solutions for free. You are setting up the lab, you are having technology capable students. But that technology capable student cannot do more than working on that technology, nothing more than that he can do. So that is the major challenge many universities are currently facing. Keep that aside, try to put in some investment for your education, because you are actually want to produce a team capable for industry capable. So little bit more focus on strategical aligning that is required. The next question, can you please suggest me a software in which I could start with a beginner? I would say not to start with software. Okay. If you ask me which software to start, I would say stop thinking of software, start thinking on what is BIM as a whole. Then you start looking into different softwares across the life cycle, what capabilities they do. Then you start pitching into which software you need. I don't want to say go to Revit, go to Navisworks, go to Bentley EcoSim, or go to Archicad. I don't want to tell you like that. That is an immature way of guiding you. I don't do that. Can you please, next one is any open BIM softwares for 7D for academy? Yeah, just go to some of the open BIM solutions, like which are very much building smart aligned. For ACA, if you go to ACA softwares, for example, or a Bexel, and these are the vendors which is already BIM for open BIM, and they do have a operation and maintenance. If you say for ACA, for example, they have softwares from planning to the demolition and recycling, including IoT interfacing and everything, including for facility maintenance, and common data environment is common for all the three phases. Still, the confusion is same for me regarding BIM is how the structural consultant can update his work or correlated his report in BIM. BIM medium, basic medium or language or software to connect. Well, I think Professor Umesh, please connect with me. I have my number. I can give you further details on what does a design experts in structures should do. How can we look forward to use BIM for small and mid-scale companies to implement BIM? Yeah, the most important thing for any small and mid-scale companies to go forward with BIM is the pricing. What is the kind of cost which is involved in BIM? Because the major challenge, if you speak to small scale and mid-scale companies, they say BIM is expensive. I don't want to go with BIM. This is the kind of challenge which comes. But there are softwares which will cost only 2,000 to 3,000 per month. Why don't you look into that? I think there are many other people. Please mute your mics. What I will do is I will mute the mics and then I will unmute mine. Yeah, thank you. So it's important when you're focusing on small and mid-scale, focus on softwares which is very much cheaper and which is very much workable, which is very much cloud-based, which is very much open BIM. And if you can build a capabilities on that to provide the services, I think you are done to convince the small and mid-scale companies. The investment is not so huge. If you're saying about 2,000 to 3,000 for 1 month license for one software is not a big money. But procuring it for a 1 year, saying that I have to pay 1.5 lakhs for one software or 10 lakhs, that will be super expensive because I don't know how many more projects I may get for BIM implementation. If you send feedback from earlier, there are some questions here. How can we look forward to use BIM? Okay, that question addressed. Then the last question I can see here is, can you suggest those softwares for mid and small scale companies? Yeah, please do connect with me. I've already said some of them. Connect with me. I will be able to give you some inputs on that.
Dr. Amarnath, I have got a question. Hope can give us some more lights on that. You're talking about this policy and other things, and you're a member of some of the policy boards as well. We have got different models of BIM implementation happened in different countries. I hope you can mute all and then unmute myself and yourself.
Okay, 1 second. So I would request all the audience to mute your mics. That will help us to support you on our discussions. Okay.
Yes, yeah, I did it. Yeah, so different countries have adopted in a different way. For example, UK has given 6 years to jump into the adoption in their public project. And then if you look at say UAE or Dubai, some places it's kind of 6 months. So what is the strategy at the policymakers level if they wanted to implement BIM or like digital transformation happens in India? What kind of a mandate that they are planning, or you are planning? You're part of the member as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is the strategy that government is thinking about in terms of? Yeah.
So anything with respect to standardization, which is a day-to-day activity from several decades within the country, the most important thing is nothing to focus on a software in a standards, but mainly to focus on helping in developing guidelines which can support them in data delivery. Because when you say about BIM, it's more about data management, which is getting handed over from different parties in the projects. How you manage this data, what is the kind of expectations the client need to have, and this kind of things we are planning out, which can be more on a product specific requirements. That's one thing. Looking into the kind of global developments. I mean, different countries, at least 15 to 20 countries have their own national standards now, and all the countries do not follow with ISO, frankly speaking, even now, and they may not go with it even later. So it's also important. Some global projects where we will go with ISO. Some local projects, obviously there's local standards which is required for our local clients. So it's one kind of standards will be launched with a key support from key agencies and key experts in the market, then which can be supporting government agencies to align their projects for that requirements. Then we'll be able to support. The major thing in our country is we have many BIM companies and capable people who are able to deliver BIM as per their country standards, other country standards. They would have already come through several standards like Singapore, UK, or US, or few other country standards. So obviously it may not be challenged for them to align for the latest developments within the country, and also for ISO. I think some of the initiatives on these lines are planned. And there's also one more session within this FDP on the national BIM standards, which I'll be handling tomorrow. So I would welcome you to join that session, probably to have a further discussion on the topic.
This is the instruction to all the other participants. Yes, we are collecting the feedback for everyone, all the speakers at the end of each session. However, ACT may come up with one towards the end of the whole FDP program, which is on Friday, for you to access your certificates and all those things after we enter the assessments and other things. So this is to Mr. Samir Basha, who's asking for this. Okay. Yeah. If there are no more questions, then we can wind up now, and then we can come back at 2 o'clock to listen to Dr. Peter Damien. And yeah.
So thank you, Dr. Senthil, and the audience. I think it was a very interactive session. So you are always welcome to connect with me. I'm always available to connect. But please reach to me on WhatsApp before a call so that we understand our common timings availability, and we'll coordinate with each other for further discussions. We're always there. This is my number, WhatsApp number. Just ping me if you want to connect with me. So thank you. Have a nice day.
Yes, thank you
all for the upcoming session tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Amarnath. I mean, it's a wonderful overview of what is happening in India, Indian AEC sector in terms of the digital transformation, and I'm sure that the listeners also enjoyed uh, and the insights, whatever which you brought in. Uh, I mean, we are happy to associate with you. We'll see that we're happy to listen to your next presentation tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See
Thank
you
you,
all.
everyone. And good afternoon, all. Welcome to the afternoon session of this FDP. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right, fantastic. Today we have with us Professor Peter Damien. He's a reader in BIM, and he's leading the construction management group at Loughborough University, UK. He's attached with the School of Architecture, Building and Civil Engineering. He finished his master's and PhD degrees from Stanford University and BA, MA, and M engineering degrees from Cambridge University. So he's a leading the construction management group, as I said before, in Loughborough University within the Department of the School of Architecture, Building and Civil Engineering. Professor Peter had a variety of industrial experience, including working with British Gas, KL&A engineers in the USA. He is affiliated in many professional bodies. Some of them are member of CIOB, Chartered Institute of Building Surveyor, and a member of ACE and fellow of HEA. And he bagged many awards, including the most prestigious 3 PIR Best Research Project, Best Paper Awards, and so on. He has got so many accolades, like 10 most downloaded paper in automation and construction, and then the top 10 most downloaded paper in the construction management engineering and economics journal, and he has been awarded by ACE as a outstanding reviewer of the year in 2012, and he also has bagged a Stanford School of Engineering fellowship in 1999. And he also involved in many other external activities. He is actively involved in the India BIM Association since its inception, since 2018. And also he has been participated in many BIM academic forums, and his research and enterprise activities are conducted with many collaborators, and to name some of them are Cambridge University Center for Digital Britain, as well as Stanford University Project-Based Learning Laboratory. So these are the two renowned collaborators that we can point out. And Professor Peter is going to give us a little bit insight on the topic called digital transformation journey, best practices around the world. Morning we had a session with Dr. Amarnath, who was giving us some lights on what is happening inside India. And Professor Peter is going to give us kind of a wider perspective, what is happening as a digital transformation around the world. So we warmly welcome you, Dr. Peter, and the session is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Senthil, for this very kind introduction, and thank you for inviting me today. I will share my screen and start my presentation. Great. Well, thank you again, Dr. Senthil, for this very kind introduction, and thank you for inviting me. So, as Dr. Senthil said, I am going to spend maybe about an hour today, or perhaps a little bit less than an hour, talking about the digital transformation journey, some best practice around the world. My perspective is mostly the UK perspective, and I will say a little bit more about why I think it's very important to look at the UK perspective, but I will also touch upon some research of other countries. So this is a brief outline I will start with drivers for the digital transformation. Why are we doing what we are doing? We're not just, I guess, kind of computer people who like to make fun toys and fun bits of software. What are the problems that we are trying to solve? What is driving us to transform our industry digitally? I would then like to spend a few minutes speaking about this very important notion of a digital twin and the idea of digital twins, and perhaps even a national digital twin. Third, I would like to talk about digital transformation around the world, and I'll present some data. And then I will talk about some research that we have been conducting at Loughborough University and some of the research of my student, Danny Morgea, which looks at systemic BIM adoption, which is a very, very important way to look at digital transformation. And then I will conclude with some reflections and maybe a UK perspective. And as I said, why I think it's actually very valuable to look through the lens of the UK. Okay, so starting from the beginning then, what are some of the drivers for digital transformation? What are we trying to do? And before I talk about what I wrote on the slide, very often I go to academic conferences about computing in construction and digital transformation of construction. And after spending 3 or 4 days with academics talking about all the wonderful applications which we can have to do things using computers and using computer systems, using software, using hardware, using robots, drones, artificial intelligence. After 2 or 3 days of listening to all of this stuff, I often kind of put my hand up at the back and say, excuse me, colleagues, but can we just check, why are we doing this? What are we trying to achieve? Is it better for our industry? Is it better for humanity, for us to automate all these things? And in many cases, the answer to these questions is yes. But sometimes the answer is maybe not. We need to stop and reflect about what we're doing. And so it's very important to think about the drivers, I feel, the drivers for this digital transformation. What are we trying to achieve? Now, many of you might know that leading up to 2016, the UK government published a strategy, and we will look at it in a little more detail in a couple of slides. But leading up to 2016, the UK government published a strategy which made BIM mandatory for public sector procurement from 2016. And leading up to this mandate, there was a lot of talk in the industry and in academia about BIM and the importance of BIM. And I remember attending a talk by a UK government official, and he had this catchphrase which stuck in my mind since that time. It's now been over 5 or 6 years. He said, for the UK government, carbon is king and data is queen. Carbon is king and data is queen. In other words, for the UK government, reducing our carbon emissions is so important. This is the first thing that the government looks at. And the second thing that the government looks at, hello. The second thing that the government looks at is data and managing the data as they are buying buildings. So carbon is king and data is queen. So I'd like to put this in the context of the UK policy. The UK government passed a law in 2008, which committed the UK to reducing its carbon emissions by 80% compared to the levels in 1990. So about, in 2008, we committed to reducing our carbon emissions by 80% compared to 1990. Very recently, a couple of years ago, that law was updated and the target was extended to at least 100%. In other words, we should be net zero carbon by 2050. And this is something which is now creating a buzz around the construction industry in the UK. Are we going to achieve this? What do we need to achieve this to be truly net zero? And I'd like to place this in the wider context of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. In fact, if you look at the UN Sustainable Development Goals, one of the things they say is about energy efficiency, energy, perhaps carbon neutrality. And so this same sentiment is in fact expressed at a global level in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So looking at the carbon footprint of buildings. Now, if I was talking to you in a physical room today, I would ask you the question, if we look at the carbon of buildings, the carbon emissions because of buildings, we all know that this is broken down into operational energy and embodied energy. So operational energy is the energy that we use on a day-to-day basis as we are heating, cooling, ventilating, repairing our buildings. Embodied energy is the energy that we use to create our buildings in the first place. If I ask you about the energy split between those two, think for a minute inside your head. What percent is operational energy and what percent is embodied energy? In fact, research has shown that 80 to 90% is operating energy and only 10 to 20% is embodied energy. In other words, the vast majority of the energy that we use in creating and operating our buildings is in fact in operating our buildings, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, etc. So I think this is a very important driver for this digital transformation. Some other drivers. Number one, client demands. This is what our clients in the construction industry expect and want. This is what the people who buy buildings want. Clients, especially the UK government, increasingly want to buy information as well as buy a building. And this kind of sentiment, you can see this very, very clearly in a document called Construction 2025, which is the UK government policy where BIM was mandated by the year 2016. If you look at that document, you will see that the government, the UK government, as a construction client, recognizes that we deliver things late and over budget and very inefficiently, and we don't make good use of people. And also that we generate a lot of carbon and carbon emissions in our construction industry. And all of this caused the government to say, you know what, we want to be able to buy the information about our buildings and manage this information more clearly. And this is what we want from our designers and contractors. This is what we want from the construction industry. We want them to give us the information as well as to design and construct a building for us. The second driver is more effective delivery of design and construction services. Kind of aligned with the first one. If we do things digitally, we as an AEC sector, we as designers and constructors of the built environment, we will be able to deliver our design and construction services more effectively. And this is one thing that you see very clearly, for example, in the ICE, which is the Institute of Civil Engineers in the UK. They have a project called Project 13, and we'll watch a video about this in a couple of minutes. And the ICE, as part of the Project 13, says, we can deliver our services much more effectively. And one way that we can deliver our services much more effectively is by digitally transforming what we do. Another driver, operation and maintenance of buildings. I've already spoken at the beginning with carbon emissions and the fact that so much of the carbon emissions from the built environment is actually from the operation of buildings rather than from the delivery or from the designing and constructing of buildings, rather than the embodied energy. In fact, a few years ago in the UK, there was a terrible disaster where a high-rise building in West London caught fire, and a couple of 100 people tragically lost their lives. It was a huge disaster that really shook the UK, that such a thing can happen in a country which is so careful about the health and safety of its construction industry. And in the aftermath of this terrible disaster, a report was commissioned by Dame Judith Hackett, the Hackett Report. And one of the recommendations of this Hackett Report is that a golden thread of good quality information should be maintained throughout the life cycle of a building to enable the building owners to better manage their buildings. In other words, when we are designing and constructing a building, we are generating a lot of information. That information should be maintained as a golden thread that runs throughout the life cycle of the building to help us to operate, maintain, manage our buildings much more effectively. And of course, safety is paramount in this, and this is what broke down in this terrible Grenfell disaster, where the fire performance of the cladding system used by the building wasn't quite understood by the owners and the managers of the building. But carbon emissions goes along with that. The fact that 80 to 90% of carbon emissions is expended during the operating phase, the operational phase of a building. And if we understood that, if we had this golden thread of information, it might help us to operate our building much more efficiently. The next driver, improved services that depend on the built environment. In other words, not just improving our services as designers and constructors of buildings, but improving the services that depend on the built environment. And I am thinking of things like education, healthcare, logistics, transport, public transport. All of these services are so fundamentally linked to the built environment that if we had information about the built environment, we would be able to provide and manage these services much more effectively. And this sentiment is expressed in a report by the UK's National Infrastructure Commission. And a couple of years ago, they published a report called Data for the Public Good. And the gist of that report is that if our built environment, if we could capture and manage the data from our built environment, we would be able to use our infrastructure much more effectively. The services that depend on our infrastructure would be delivered much more effectively. And the final driver, which I'd like to share with you, which came out of a report published by the CDBB, the Center for Digital Built Britain, last year. This idea of flourishing systems, that if we digitally transform what we do, we will enable our society to flourish. And I recommend that you take a look at that report if you've got some time. So all of these things give you some context of what is driving the digital transformation in the UK and perhaps by extension around the world. So now I would like to share with you an example of the ICE Project 13 initiative, a short video about this, which says a little bit more about that initiative and the role that the digital transformation of the industry plays in delivering our services as designers and constructors of buildings more effectively. So I've hopefully ticked the box so that you can hear this through the Zoom video conference.
The government's industrial strategy seeks to address long-term challenges to the UK's economy. High-performing infrastructure must be at its core. Without it, we have little hope of increasing productivity and generating growth. And we will not be able to secure the quality of life required by our growing population. Yet the model we use to deliver and operate much of our infrastructure is broken. Too often, projects are delivered over budget, past deadline, and below par. The supply chain seems locked in a cycle of low margins, low investment, and dysfunctional relationships. But if we stop seeing relationships as purely transactional, stop making decisions driven entirely by cost, we can create value-orientated, enterprising teams that come together to deliver programs focused on the demands of their clients and the public. And we are already building a community of infrastructure owners and suppliers committed to making this change. Working with the largest players in the sector, we've identified 5 features that are crucial to this new approach to successful project delivery. Governance. Infrastructure owners must establish rules, processes, and practices to guide their interactions with suppliers and their decision-making. Organisation. Owners must engage the right suppliers at the right time and integrate them into the team. Integration. Owners must develop the culture, practices, and systems appropriate to the program being delivered. Capable owner. Owners must have the capability to define outcomes, articulate technical requirements, manage stakeholders, put infrastructure into operation, and work collaboratively with the whole team. Digital transformation. Organisations need to do more than just embrace new technologies. They must devise new business models that change the way they operate. Project 13 is a bold new approach to delivering high-performing infrastructure. Help lead the transformation of our sector and build a better future for Britain. Join our community at www.p13.org.uk.
So I think that this video talks about the Institution of Civil Engineers Project 13 initiative, which says that we can deliver our design and construction services more effectively if we work with a capable owner, if you think about the governance, if we think about the integration of our supply chains, but very, very importantly, if we digitally transform what we do. So this is an example of how digital transformation is positioned as something for providing better design and construction services, and something that we need to do as AEC professionals. Okay, so we've spoken about drivers for digital transformation. Let's pause for a second and talk about digital twins. I think this is a concept which has emerged as hugely important in the past couple of years, and it deserves, I think, some special attention. Digital twins. So digital twins help us to operate and maintain physical twins more effectively. In other words, we've got a physical piece of infrastructure, a physical building, or a physical piece of linear infrastructure. And alongside that, we've got a digital twin, a physical twin, and a digital twin. The digital twin is a model. In other words, this is not a new idea. What perhaps is new about this concept is that the physical twin and the digital twin are very tightly coupled, I think is the term that I use here. Tightly coupled, so they're very, very closely integrated. In other words, you might continuously collect data from the physical twin and import it into your digital twin to keep your digital twin as accurate and up-to-date as possible. And at the same time, you might continuously be doing analysis, simulation, optimization on your digital twin, and you can feed that back into your digital twin to operate it and maintain it more effectively. So there's this two-way flow of information, two-way flow of action and activity between the physical twin and the digital twin. And this is perhaps what makes this idea of a digital twin new or original, or at least useful. And here I'd like to return for a minute to this idea of 80 to 90% of a building's carbon emissions are from the operation of that building. So this idea of a digital twin is very, very important for us to reduce that huge chunk of emissions which comes from operating the building. Alongside all of this, there's also this idea of a national digital twin, a national digital twin. Now, a national digital twin is not one huge Revit model of the whole of the UK. It is not that at all. Instead, the national digital twin might be something like lots of individual digital twins for individual buildings and individual pieces of infrastructure, but those individual digital twins are somehow integrated with each other and exchange information with each other and enable decisions to be taken at a national level. And to give you a little bit more of a vision for what is driving this concept of a national digital twin, I would like to share with you this video of the Gemini principles. So we will watch this video in a minute about the Gemini principles published by the Center for Digital Built Britain in Cambridge. But before we do that, another useful analogy which people often make is the national digital twin might be a little bit like the World Wide Web. The World Wide Web has just a certain degree of standardization to enable computers around the world to exchange information. Maybe lots of web servers and lots of web clients, lots of people using web browsers, also lots of other different kinds of clients and servers, maybe even peer-to-peer networks, lots of computers on the World Wide Web exchanging information. And a lot of people compare the idea of a national digital twin to the World Wide Web. It is that kind of thing. It is lots of different buildings, stakeholders, bits of infrastructure having their individual digital twin, but exchanging information with other digital twins that will enable decisions to be made at a national level. And to see what kind of decisions we can make at a national level, I'd like to share with you this video of the Gemini principles. So here goes.
The UK is developing a national digital twin, an ecosystem of connected digital twins securely sharing infrastructure information to support better outcomes for us all. The Centre for Digital Built Britain has developed the Gemini principles as the conscience of the national digital twin, 9 guiding values to ensure that these digital twins have purpose, maintain trust, and function effectively. The Gemini principles are: public good, meaning that digital twins must be used to deliver genuine public benefit. Value creation, so that digital twins enable improved infrastructure performance and better outcomes for people. Insight, to enable better decision-making based on better analysis of better data across the built environment. Digital twins must enable security and be secure themselves, and they should be as open as possible. The appropriate balance between security and openness is key. Digital twins must be built on data that is of sufficient quality for the purpose to which they are put. Federation, meaning that digital twins should enable connection of data from different sources and be connectable themselves. Curation, so that the data and the digital twins are properly cared for, having clear stewardship, governance, and regulation. And as technology and societies evolve, digital twins must be able to cope with that ongoing evolution. CDBB is calling on leaders involved in creating and managing the built environment to build the Gemini principles into their digital strategies, especially for their work on digital twins. The principles will enable a values-based approach to the development of digital twins and pave the way for secure, resilient data sharing, which is at the heart of the national digital twin. The digital transformation of the built environment is happening. The time to act is now. Join us. cdbb.cam.ac.uk.
Okay, so we've spoken about drivers for the digital transformation. We've spoken about digital twins, and especially this idea of a national digital twin. And we've looked at this video of the Gemini principles, kind of the conscience, as the video said, the conscience of the national digital twin, what we're trying to achieve, and why this idea of a national digital twin is one that is good for the nation. What I'd like to share with you now is some data, some research about digital transformation around the world, and particularly two examples of resources that have done some research about digital transformation around the world. One of those is the Autodesk IDC report. So I'm not sure I understand this correctly, but I believe that IDC is the International Data Corporation, something like that. So this is a company that does research based on data collection and data analysis, and they must have been commissioned by Autodesk to conduct this research to measure digital transformation around the world. And I've put a link to this report on the slides. This is a very, very interesting report. And what they did is they surveyed over 800 construction professionals from large construction companies around the world. They were trying to assess the construction industry's digital transformation, what they label as DX. So they tried to measure this DX in different countries around the world alongside the maturity of the construction industries in different countries and the challenges faced by construction industries in different countries. One of their conclusions is that Europe and the Americas have a higher digital maturity than the Asia Pacific region. However, to my mind, India did stand out as actually prioritizing digitization or digital transformation quite remarkably. And I know that my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Amanath, spoke earlier today about digital transformation in India, but I would also like to signal you to this link to read more about what that general Autodesk IDC report said about India, which is kind of the outsider's perspective of the digital transformation in India. So a little bit more about what they said. This graph on the left looks at current investment in BIM-based workflows, but also in the light blue, I don't know if you can see it, in the light blue, there's a second bar, which is planned investment in BIM-based workflows. And very, very surprisingly, the top bar on this graph is for Brazil, all the way at the right-hand side of the bar chart on the left. So Brazil is investing a lot of resources in BIM-based workflows. You'll also see that I think that probably the second or third highest is India, followed by Korea. And then you can also see here some of the more digitally mature countries, the UK and the US are in the middle of the range. The second graph of planned, rather than current investment, but planned investment, you can see here that India also ranks very, very highly. I think it's the top gray bar or light blue bar on that bar chart on the left-hand side of the screen. Looking now at the right-hand side of the screen, they also measured, according to responses, perceptions of BIM projects and skills. So that they asked respondents how many members work within BIM, whether they felt they had the specialist BIM expertise, and they also use here a second acronym, which is VDC, Virtual Design and Construction, which is often used as the process side of BIM rather than the software side of BIM. And they ask questions such as, we outsource work related to BIM, and so on. And you can see here the different responses for the different parts of the world. There is a second report, which I thought was quite interesting, and this one focused on Europe rather than the whole world. So this was commissioned by a company called Plan Radar. Now, Plan Radar is a construction business-to-business software as a service platform. So they provide what we would in the UK call an extranet or a common data environment. And they are the developers of this. And their niche or their expertise is in managing documentation and communication and task and defect management. So this is the specialty of their particular common data environment or software as a service platform. They were established in Austria and they focus on Europe, I guess, and that's why they commissioned this research, which looks at particularly BIM adoption and BIM maturity around Europe, and also government mandates around Europe. So I've put a link on the slide to their report, and I think it's well worth a skim and even an in-depth read if you've got the time and you're interested in what's happening within Europe. Now here's a table which summarizes some of their findings. So they looked at various countries, the UK, Germany, Poland, and so on. And for each of them, they measured the most common maturity level of organizations within the industry. And I guess they used something very similar to the UK's maturity breakdown, where 0 is kind of standard CAD, 1 is perhaps 3D CAD, 2 is federated BIM, and 3 is kind of fully integrated model-based BIM. So 0, 1, 2, 3. And they said that the UK is mostly at BIM level 2 with development towards BIM level 3. Germany is mostly level 2 with some 1 and 3. Poland is 1, BIM maturity level 1, but it's moving towards 2. France is at level 2. Croatia, level 0 with some cases of 1. Austria, 1, with local standards pushing for level 3. So they seem to be jumping from level 1 to level 3. And Russia is 1, but growing rates of 2 and 3. And you can see here the dates when BIM became mandatory in the UK from 2016. So one of the first countries in Europe to mandate BIM, and then later dates for the other countries. And the last column on that table is the percentage of construction companies that use BIM. And again, I think probably the UK is the highest there with 73%, and it tails down for the other countries. So that Autodesk IDC report and the Plan Radar research, I think, are two very interesting examples of BIM adoption around the world. I would like to now start to bring this presentation to a close by telling you about some of the current research on BIM adoption, both research that we have conducted at Loughborough University on systemic BIM adoption, but also comparing that to some of the research that was conducted elsewhere, which I think is very, very important when we're looking at BIM adoption around the world. BIM adoption is very complicated because of the intricate supply chains and the very complicated project structures we have in construction. In fact, they're not supply chains. Many people say they're supply networks. So if one link in that supply chain has a very, very high BIM maturity, but nobody else in the project has a high BIM maturity, what does that mean for the maturity level of the whole project, or even the maturity level of the whole country? It is very, very complicated. Now, some colleagues of ours, and I'm thinking of Bilal Sukar and his group in Australia, they term this macro BIM adoption. Macro BIM adoption. The idea that if we're looking at BIM adoption, it's maybe too simple to look at individual organizations or even individual professionals, individual projects. We need to look at it at a system level, and this is what they term macro BIM adoption. And I've put a reference there to a very interesting paper they published a couple of years ago, or 2015, 6 or 7 years ago. And one of the things that one of the interesting classifications that they proposed for BIM, for this macro BIM adoption, was based on top-down BIM adoption. In other words, a government mandate or some higher authority, some professional body or the whole government mandating BIM from the top down. They also have a second classification of bottom-up adoption, which means end users, clients, companies seeing the benefit of BIM from the bottom up, seeing the benefit of BIM and adopting it, driven by these benefits. And the third class, or the third category that they propose, is middle out, which is, I guess, a mix between the two, middle out BIM adoption. So I think that kind of thinking is very, very useful for looking at BIM adoption around the world and what is the best practice around the world. In the UK, I think we went for the top-down approach, and we were one of the first countries to mandate BIM in the way that we did for government public sector procurement. But there are other ways which are suitable to different contexts and that have had varying degrees of success. So that is the research on macro BIM adoption by Bilal Sukar and Hamad Qasim and their team in the UK and in Australia. I think the research which we have been doing at Loughborough University by my PhD graduate, Dr. Danny Morgaya. So we use the term systemic BIM adoption. So comparable to macro BIM adoption, we use systemic BIM adoption. And that says that BIM adoption is part of a big system, and we need to study the whole system in order to understand BIM adoption. And this is one of the models that Danny produced. And ultimately, in kind of the center of the figure, perhaps we have the individual professional who has to load up Revit or another piece of software or another common data environment platform, software as a service platform. It's always an individual that uses this software, and an individual that uses this BIM process. So we did start with individuals as our atom, our unit of analysis, but we had to place that individual in the wider context so that we are looking at BIM adoption in a systemic way and looking at the whole system. And the components of the system were the context. You can see at the top right of the figure, the organization's linkages, the supply chain management challenges, the organization's drivers and BIM usage. And we did, or Danny did some very intricate statistical analysis to measure all of those different components of the system of BIM adoption, and to look at the influence between those different factors. And he has come up with a very, very interesting model of systemic BIM adoption. And I invite you all to look at our paper on the left-hand side there. I put the reference. Okay. So we started this presentation with drivers for the digital transformation. What are we trying to achieve? We're not just doing these things for fun, but there are certain problems that we're trying to address and certain improvements we're trying to make in our industry. We talked about especially the net zero carbon agenda in the UK and the UN Sustainable Development Goals globally, and the fact that most of the carbon emissions in a building are during the operational phase of the building's life cycle. We talked about national digital twins and this idea of, we talked about digital twins and this idea of a national digital twin. I gave you some examples of research on digital transformation around the world, the Autodesk IDC report, and some research which was conducted by Plan Radar, the software as a service platform. And finally, I presented to you some research that we have been conducting at Loughborough University, looking at systemic BIM adoption, but also some research which colleagues and friends of ours have been conducting in Australia and the UK, and the term they use is macro BIM adoption. I'd like to wrap up now with some conclusions, perhaps giving a UK perspective, and I think this will leave lots of time for questions. So I invite you all, if you haven't had time, haven't done so already, to type any questions or thoughts or any input you have, type it in the chat window, or after the presentation in a few minutes, you're also welcome to unmute yourself and we can have a fun discussion as well. But let's wrap up with a UK perspective. I believe that the UK is emerging as a world leader. It has been a world leader in mandating BIM. As we saw from the Plan Radar research, it was the first country in Europe, and I believe one of the first in the world, to mandate BIM for public sector procurement, for the government buying buildings or buying infrastructure. But very, very interestingly, we are now talking about Industry 4.0, which some people think of as the fourth industrial revolution. And looking back to the first industrial revolution, I believe that this was one of the UK's gifts to the world, or one of the UK's contributions to the world. It's one thing that happened in the UK and spread around the world. And perhaps in the same way as the first industrial revolution started in the UK and spread around the world, I think perhaps to some extent, the fourth industrial revolution is also being led by the UK. And I do believe that what is happening in the UK is worth a closer look so that other countries can learn from it, both the good and the bad. I think climate change is a huge challenge facing humanity. This might seem like a very strange thing to say when we are in the middle of a global pandemic and many, many people are tragically losing their lives because of this terrible pandemic, including in India and in the UK and pretty much worldwide. But I do believe that climate change is the more important challenge facing humanity, especially in the medium term. And the challenge with potentially much more drastic and serious consequences. Now, for this climate change challenge, the construction industry, the AEC industry, has a huge role to play. And as we saw, the digital transformation can play a huge role in the construction industry playing its part in meeting that challenge. And the final thought I'd like to leave you with is that this is a very, very exciting time to be working in the built environment. With the hindsight of history, we now know that all of those people who were living in villages around the UK over 200 years ago, at the time of the first industrial revolution, all of those people were part of a very, very interesting time in the history of mankind when they started moving from the villages to the cities, and they started shifting their work from agriculture to factories. So all of those people were doing something that was very, very interesting with the hindsight of history. And I also wonder whether when historians look back at our current period and look at things that are happening in the construction industry at this time, what they will say about the digital transformation of our industry. But I think they will conclude that this was a very, very exciting time and a very, very perhaps revolutionary time for the construction industry. So it really is a very exciting time to be working in the built environment. And this is my final thought for today. So with that, I will stop talking and I will check the chat window. And I hope that we do have a few minutes for any questions. I welcome any questions, comments, discussions from my friends in the audience.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Peter. It's a wonderful presentation. It gives kind of all-around thoughts about the digital transformation which is happening outside India. And I like the analogy or the caption which you have mentioned, some of the caption, especially the carbon is a king and data is a queen. The queen is always more charismatic than the king, at least in the UK's community. I mean, yeah, that's true in Indian context as well. I mean, we have got data which comes in among the professionals. And then also, I like that golden thread and the mandate which happened from those kind of drivers. This is what something which is lagging in countries like India. I mean, we are an emerging economy, and we don't have either an affordability to think about, the net carbon zero or mandating some of the most. I don't use the word sophisticated. I use the word the sufficiency in terms of getting the services and other things. So this is true for all the emerging economies. I mean, not developing nations. We still call ourselves as a developing nation. Yeah. One other thing which I also felt myself when we are trying to adopt technologies. The mandate plays a major role. And UK, as you said, is the world leader. For sure, UK is a world leader in terms of, at least in terms of adopting or mandating BIM. I still remember that when I was engaging the research at around 2012 or 11, at that time, this His Majesty, Her Majesty report has come that, yes, by another 6 years, it is going to be mandated with all the public projects and all those things. At that time, I was having a lot of questions. For example, how the whole industry is going to embrace this whole technology, especially with the SMEs and all those things, because they are playing a very crucial part in terms of the adoption. As you said, the supply chain is going to be having a weak link if we don't consider the SMEs, because somehow or otherwise, these SMEs play a role in a major project, right? So that's something which I would like to know more about, more from you, your experience in UK, because this is one of the things that we are also facing in our project, that we mandated the BIM adoption in our project. However, it's not to the whole supply chain. We still face difficulty in terms of educating them and then supporting them, to adopt this. So, any thoughts or any experiences that you would like to share?
I think this is a great question. Thank you, Dr. Senthil. I think this is an absolutely huge issue. I think, and at the time of the BIM mandate, we would talk a lot about the importance of SMEs, and there's all kinds of statistics, as you alluded, that in our industry, in the UK and worldwide, I'm making up now numbers, but these numbers are out there. Something like 90% of organizations are SMEs, or 90% of the revenue of the construction industry, of the turnover, is managed by SMEs, and all of these things. Some even not kind of micro SMEs, tiny companies with 1 or 2 practitioners. So this was a huge issue, and a lot of people, they use the term, for example, disenfranchised. They would say that the BIM mandate is going to disenfranchise SMEs in particular. And the dean of our school, Professor Andy Dainty, or the outgoing dean of our school, Professor Andy Dainty, actually conducted some very, very interesting research. If you look for research by Andrew Dainty, you will see that there's been a lot of research conducted by academics about the effect of BIM and BIM mandates on SMEs. And Andy actually wrote a paper which I'm always on the side of BIM, but he wrote a paper a few years ago called the BIM bubble or something, or the BIM, had a really catchy title, which was kind of against BIM. And I kind of alluded to this at the beginning of my presentation. I said, well, let's look at the drivers, let's question what we're doing, and let's really check the desirability for our industry and the desirability for mankind. Now, having said all of this, there is no doubt that BIM has a lot of benefits. Some of those might be potential benefits, but some of them might be very, 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 very real benefits and very, very realizable benefits. So I think the challenge for the industry and for researchers is how to realize those benefits for everyone and not keep the initial costs or the barriers from excluding SMEs. It absolutely is a challenge, and it's a very active research area. But in a way, I think the market will even beyond the mandate. I think the market, almost the economic benefits of BIM, will even make this apparent and will drive SMEs to adopt BIM to some extent. There's a whole movement. I think one of the main things is the cost of software licenses and the cost of training, but there's a big movement of open BIM now and making BIM software more affordable, perhaps. And that might help lessen that burden. But even if we make the software more affordable, there's still the training required in BIM workflows and the BIM way of working, which is not just about the software. So it is a challenge, and this is a very, very interesting question.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope we have got some questions in the chat, and yeah, you can go through all this.
Okay, so I'll just thank you, Dr. Sultan. Now I'll just try and click on the chat and let's see. Okay.
Do you want me to read, or you can?
Yes, please. I think you might be better equipped than me. So I see the first.
Okay.
ABC professionals hearing first time. Can you please make it clear? I don't know if my audio is unclear, but I think that might be resolved. Can top-down or top to bottom affect the speed and efficiency of adoption? I think this is a great question. And so this is perhaps referring to this research by Bilal Sukar and Mohammed Qasim on macro BIM adoption. And the fact that BIM adoption can be top-down, bottom-up, or middle-out, and which is the fastest. To be honest, I don't know. It probably depends on the context. I think in the UK context, where perhaps, as you alluded, Dr. Senthil, in the UK context, where maybe financial challenges are, I want to say, are lower than the world. Even though many people in the UK would disagree with me, they'd say, well, our profit margins are very low and the competition is low thing, and the industry is set up so that it's just not working. But we have the same issues with SMEs and stuff. But I'll still say that perhaps financial challenges are lower than other parts of the world. I think the top-down approach worked quite well, even though to this day research shows that many people are not even at the required BIM level 2 maturity, especially SMEs. But I think in the UK, top-down worked quite well. I think other places, my friend and colleague Danny Morgaya conducts a lot of research on Peru, his native country, and in Peru, I don't think a top-down approach would work at all, and perhaps something like bottom-up or kind of gentle nudges rather than mandates, but nudges from the top might help, and that's kind of the middle out approach. I think that might be better for less mature and less economically developed nations. But yeah, a very good question. Thank you. So,
yeah, I would like to add a bit because I also did some level of research in South Africa and in UAE, and also had kind of a hands-on, with my colleagues in UK as well. So as you said, it is context specific, and there is a good amount of research required for Indian context. I'll give you a simple example. UK has taken 6+ years to reach this maturity level. Okay, but UAE, if you take, and in the UAE, there is one state called Dubai. Okay,
yes.
Dubai took nearly less than a year to take it up from the top-down approach. They said that on fine morning, next year onwards, all these buildings have to have, a BIM mandate. That's it. So within a year, it happened. So, I mean, different contexts will have a different kind of effect and implications. In South Africa, it was no mandate, nothing. It's just a competition, as Peter has mentioned. Competition among the stakeholders, because they have got so much of competition in the building industry. So they want to stand out. So they started adopting. And then slowly the market penetration happened. So for the Indian context, I hope that we need to have a little bit more understanding about the industry's behavior, though we have reached a decent level of BIM, but still I don't agree that we are matured enough to claim ourselves as level 1, level 2, level 3, or whatever it is. It's happening, in a distributed manner, but not in a holistic way.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at India from the outside, that there does seem to be the vision, and that there does seem to be the will, or the kind of the motivation, but it hasn't quite yet matured into reality. But looking at the graph that I showed, where India has a very high investment in BIM workflows, and a very high planned investment in those. But it's still not quite there with the actual kind of BIM outcomes. Maybe the outcomes haven't realized yet, which is very, very interesting. Even though we know that in many kind of information technology kind of innovations, India is leading the world. And I follow what Dr. Amarnath and his team in the India BIM Association are doing, and it's very, very active, and it's very, very exciting to be a part of that. But as you say, Dr. Senthil, I think the actual kind of real project outcomes that come from BIM workflows aren't quite there yet. Is that a fair thing to say, would you say, Dr. Senthil?
Yes, it is very much true. And I would say that, thanks for bringing up the supply chain links and other things. I would say that more research in terms of that line has to be done in Indian context to identify the weak link.
A very, very interesting question from Mr. Prasmanta, or Ms. Prasmanta. So it says, can information on the influence of supply chain coordination on the effectiveness of BIM adoption? In particular, what extent does supply chain visibility, how does supply chain visibility affect BIM adoption? So I think that's a very, very interesting question. And one thing that Danny Morgaya tried to do in his research is look at kind of almost kind of at the digital divide or digital disparities within the supply chain. So we tried to measure, not just as a project, not just how digitally mature was the client, or how digitally mature was the contractor, or how digitally mature were the subcontractors or the designers, not those individual maturities, but we tried to calculate a number for the disparities, almost kind of like the statistical deviation or the statistical variance between those maturities within a supply chain. And we tried to see whether that disparity, that variation within the supply chain had any effect on the overall BIM outcomes of the project. And indeed, there was an effect. It does have an effect. And we need to do more research to be able to measure this. So I think part of your question is, what are some of the research challenges? Well, the research challenges is how to put a number to these things, how to quantify some of those very complicated, subtle things. And everybody will agree that even just measuring BIM maturity, even the standard kind of UK breakdown, which is now perhaps outdated of level 0, level 1, level 2, level 3, even the ISO 19650 BIM maturity of the international standard from a couple of years ago, even those measures are difficult to measure. But once you start to add context and supply chains, it becomes even more complicated to measure. And by trying to quantify these complicated things, you end up just kind of killing the essence of what it is you're trying to measure. So it's a huge research challenge. Would you like to add anything, Dr. Senthil?
I absolutely concur your answers. Yes, it is very tough in terms of coming up with kind of numbers like ROI. On the other day, I had a presentation with CPWD on their day. I mean, it's a public organization. CPWD, Central Public Works Department. It's of 165 years old plus years old, if I'm not wrong. So we had a presentation last week. So at that time, one of the questions which arose was, I mean, is it possible for us to have kind of an ROI fit into this? So if you ask me that in our projects, we realized benefits, but if you ask me to quantify how much is the cost of one iteration or reduction of one iteration or whatever it is, I would say that it is a daunting task. And I miss the essence of, as you said, the benefit which BIM brings out, So I spend a lot of time in terms of measuring what is the benefit that I'm getting instead of enjoying the benefit. So
yes,
that's something which I mean, it's a tough thing. I completely
it's a huge challenge.
Yeah,
and ROI especially a huge thing, because some of the benefits are very, very long term. Some of the benefits, we use the word kind of intangible. They're benefits, but they're not. But it's a quote comes to mind. It's sometimes attributed to Albert Einstein, but sometimes to other people. But the quote says, "Not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted." And the really, really important things cannot be counted, and it's a huge challenge. I think that there's another very interesting question here from the chat. How can digital twins capture work or quality of construction? This is a very, very interesting question. I think one way perhaps people are starting to think about is, well, I think computer vision. People think about computer vision and having cameras on site.
Peter, do you want me to assist anything?
No, so sorry. I was looking at the screen. I was wondering whether I'd lost the connection. So computer vision. So kind of having cameras on site and perhaps automatically analyzing those video signals or those images to automatically detect defects and manage quality. And there's a huge team. The name of the university escapes me, but there's a huge team in China, and it's a particular university in China. I wish I could remember the name of that university. But if you go onto Google Scholar and you type quality control, quality management, and BIM, you will see that 3 or 4 top publications that appear in the journal Automation in Construction are from one university in China. And they do a lot of work on computer vision, so automatically detecting these defects so that humans don't have to. And again, I would maybe just raise an alarm bell of checking that this is a desirable thing for us to do. But certainly part of the repetitive tasks we should relegate to our kind of electronic automation, BIM, computer vision. But the other really interesting part, which is emerging, is using augmented reality, where actually you can wear some goggles on a construction site and look up at the steel frame, look up at the concrete slab which has just been poured, and maybe what this system can do, or what such a system can do, is compare the BIM model in the background with what you're currently seeing on the construction site, and it will highlight any discrepancies between the BIM and the model. So these are some of the developments, and one of those things is actually a commercial platform. It's matured beyond just research into a commercial platform, and there are companies that do this. And one of the companies I think is called Build Dots. If you Google Build Dots, you'll see that there's a company that offers its construction clients these systems where you can put on some goggles and you can do some scanning and compare what you're seeing on a construction site with the BIM model and the required quality in the BIM model. So I don't know if that addresses that question. Now, another question about risk management. I think this is a very, very good question. I recently attended some presentations about the innovation in the construction industry and how in construction we're not as innovative, or we are reportedly not as innovative as other industries. We're not as innovative as the manufacturing industry, as the automotive industry, as the aeronautical industry, as the aviation industry. And lots of people are saying we're not as we don't invest a lot in innovation. We don't invest as much in technology as much as those other industrial sectors. And I think one of the reasons is our attitude to risk, and we are very, very risk averse. And being innovative is very often risky. And I think this is just a challenge that the industry has. So I think that's a very, very good question, a very, very good comment, and it requires some thought and some reflection and some research. Another comment: how can organizational culture help adoption? Can you tell me how the UK culture looks to compare to other countries? I think this is a very good. I think ultimately it comes to the management, the commitment of the top management. And I think if the top management see the economic benefits, they will drive the innovation, the adoption from the top of the company, from the top of the organization downwards. So I think in a way, you know, I said in our research with my colleague and friend Danny Morgaya that we looked at individuals using the individual worker using the BIM system, but we also looked at the commitment of the top manager. And I think the commitment of the top manager is absolutely very, very important to drive down this innovation down the hierarchy. Absolutely right, though. Organizational culture, very, very important. How research and academic institutions help digital construction in the UK? I think that's another very, very good comment. I think that the UK government invests a lot in helping companies to partner with academia and do joint research, joint innovation and development. So there is some research in the UK which is more kind of blue skies, lower number technology readiness levels, but there's also a lot of investment in research which is kind of closer to industrial application, and the UK government invests a lot of money in partnerships between academia and companies, and I think that that's very, very important to do. And now looking down the list of questions, I think that's all that I can see. Dr. Senthil or my friends in the audience, I welcome if anybody has any more questions to type them in the chat or to unmute yourself and to speak your question. Other than that, I think perhaps we can draw this session to a close.
Yeah. Just to give a little bit more on the organizational side. Yeah, one of my students who was in South Africa has investigated something. A former student who is in UK now, who's working for Oxford Brookes, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
One of our top universities.
Yeah, I mean, he worked for the professional service providers adoption within the organization, how the organizational dynamics happened while adopting BIM, because BIM typically driven by the young generation, but the top management typically the older generation people. So how the power dynamics when it comes for discussions about the project comes when after the introduction of BIM plays a major role, and it was an impediment as well, some to an extent. It's a quite interesting study. If
Yes.
the participant would like to refer, then he can refer. Yes, yeah.
I think you've mentioned a very important word, which is power and power dynamics. I think
yes.
There are several PhDs that are needed just to, I mean, many PhDs have already been completed in researching that topic, but I think there's many more still needed to understand, especially in BIM adoption within organizations. Very interesting.
Yeah, I hope that completes this particular session, and thank you so much, Dr. Peter. I mean, it was very informative as well as very interactive as well, and I could see already a lot of compliments floating in the chat window as well as in our WhatsApp group. So thank you so much, and we would like to be associated with you, and if time permits, you are allowed to attend all our sessions. And yeah,
of course. Thank you very much, Dr. Senthil, for inviting me, and I'll certainly try and listen and learn from your great set of speakers for the remainder of this conference as well. I am very honored to be with you in these few days. Thank you.
Yeah, very pleasure. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. As participants, the feedback form has been posted in the chat window. You can give your feedback, and if you have any more questions, then also you can float. We will get back to you. And this end the particular day's sessions, and I'm keen to see you tomorrow for the forthcoming sessions. And thank you so much for the well-behaved online session. Thank you. Together we can learn a lot. Thank you. I wish you all the best.